And chat, how's it going, guys? Today we're watching the Path of Exile, the Forbidden Sanctum League Reveal stream. And hopefully we're getting more hype than we have for the last couple leagues. Because the last couple leagues have been mediocre. Sentinel was fine, but it was overshadowed by Arch Nemesis being in the game. Lake of Calandra was fine, but it was overshadowed by Arch Nemesis being in the game. Whoops, hang on. Forgot to shut off Poke Clicker. Nope, not settings. Save. Save, save, exit. But they've gotten rid of Arch Nemesis. It's mostly gone. They're going back to how rares used to work, which is exciting because Arch Nemesis League was fine. It was a fun build your own monster challenge, but it was fun because you could control what you were facing. You could build your own monster. You could decide what you wanted to face. And you didn't have to engage with stuff you didn't think you could handle. And then they brought Arch Nemesis Core, and it was a nightmare because all this stuff, all this weird, dangerous stuff that interacted and was super tanky and all that jazz, you couldn't choose not to engage with it. You had to run. If your build wasn't strong enough, and it very often wasn't strong enough to kill these things because they were super tanky, and often did a ton of damage, you just had to run. And sometimes you couldn't run because it was super sped up, in addition to being damaging and tanky. And what's worse, you couldn't tell what the mods did. They replaced a list of mods that told you what the monster did. Extra life, extra damage, extra resistances, you know, whatever. With stuff that was mechanically more complex, but completely uncommunicated. Nobody knew that Incendiary did half of the things that Incendiary did until they data mined it. And wait, did they data mine it, or did they just get a post from GGG laying out what every mod did? Either way, it was bonkers. And then they doubled down on it when people said they hated it, and then they tripled down on it in Lake of Calandra, and people said they hated it. And they nerfed it like 3 or 4 times, trying to get it into a place where people were happy with it. But people were unhappy with the system, not with the tuning. It just wasn't fun. And it overwrote every other League mechanic. There was no Legion anymore. There was just Arch Nemesis. There was no Delve. There was just Arch Nemesis. No Delirium. There was just Arch Nemesis. No Blight or Heist or any of that stuff. There was just Arch Nemesis. Worst thing to happen to the game in a very long time. Very worst thing to happen to the game in a very long time. Wait, there's a Twister build where you just run around and it auto-casts? I thought you could only have one Twister out at once, or is that a different skill? Huh. But, yeah. Arch Nemesis is thankfully gone. It's being reduced to a system that's very much like the original Rare mod system. It'll have specific mods that say exactly what they do, that have one effect. Rares with more mods will still be more tanky. but they they'll be legible again and much less dangerous. There were some rares that were tougher than Pinnacle Atlas bosses, like Uber Atlas bosses to boot. It was a bad system. And the way they quadrupled down on it was they added reward types to some of the highest tier Arch Nemesis mods that converted drops into certain things. And that didn't go over well either, because since you knew what a certain mod would give you, if you didn't call in a magic find color, it would be a waste. Oh, it's starting. It says it's starting. Maybe it's just finishing this video. But now they've kept the random reward types, but they've spread them out over every mod, and you don't know what they're going to be. It's a random chance to have every reward type in this every rare, which is much better and more rewarding than rares used to be. So it's worth stopping to kill them all the time. Alright, it's 2 o'clock. End the video. Show us what you got. I get it. Build of the Week is awesome. You can do crazy shit in this game. I love this game for it. But I want to see the Forbidden Sanctum trailer.
Hi, I'm Chris Wilson
Here
from
we go.
Grinding Gear Games. Thanks for joining us for today's live stream as we reveal our upcoming expansion, the Forbidden Sanctum, which launches on December 9th on PC and Mac, and on December 14th on
8
console.
days.
Twitch drops are enabled on today's live stream, so make sure you follow the instructions below in order to claim your Bloodguard wings. Here's what you can expect from today's live stream. We'll start by debuting the trailer for the Forbidden
Patch notes
Sanctum,
coming
and we'll then do
soon.
a deep dive on the League itself. We'll cover
They're not going to be out at the end?
in-game revamps and content, and then we'll have a look at all the new skills we're introducing. We'll then reveal some new unique items and the massive buffs and rarity adjustments we have made to a variety of
Buffs on
in-game
unique weapons. Please buff
We'll then
Starforge.
briefly cover some balance topics
And
that we've
Zeri's
posted articles
disfavor.
about recently. Jewels, curses, and the replacement of the Arch Nemesis monster mod system.
Starforge
Finally,
is my
we'll
favorite
discuss
weapon in the
upcoming
game.
release of the optional Ruthless game mode before touching on some quality of life improvements and the new supporter packs. The livestream concludes with a Q&A session between Ziggy D and me, where we'll answer questions from Twitch chat. Then we'll drop the full patch notes. Let's get started with the trailer
Oh,
for
hey,
the
Danny.
Forbidden Sanctum,
I hope you
which
feel
launches
better.
in 1 week.
We're going to stream Ghost Trick at the specified time. Sorry. For various reasons.
Many have met their fate here in the shade of Fell Shrine.
The Fellshrine Ruins.
So, step lightly. But here you are bound by new rules. My rules.
Roguelike mode?
Each step with gold to tempt you. A foe to wound you. A curse to spite you.
Oh, it is a
But
roguelike
do
mode.
not give up. For vast riches await the bold.
Interesting.
Pillage this sanctum if you must. And one day you may uncover its secrets.
Interesting. A roguelike mode in the Fellshrine Ruins. That looks like a nightmare to navigate. Bunch of cool bosses. Okay, that looked neat. The one where you summoned Duresso style. Yes, they buffed Starforge! Yes! I like the Duresso move. Oh, they've revamped the Atlas tree. Okay. Okay. I'm intrigued. I wonder what the League resource is going to be for.
The Forbidden Sanctum is an old Templar enclave, long rumored to be hidden beneath the Fellshrine ruins. Abandoned for a long time, it is now controlled by a malevolent entity. In this league, you'll explore it, find out its secrets, and deal with the evil that lurks there. The Sanctum Challenge League is a roguelike game, played out one room at a time as you explore Rayclast and the Atlas in Path of Exile. In every area or map you enter, you can make a choice of which room in the Sanctum you will explore next. On the Sanctum map, you can see the contents of a few rooms ahead, enabling you to plot a path through its dangerous halls. And the Sanctum is dangerous. Like most roguelikes, you should not expect to be able to complete it on your first try. Getting to the deeper floors requires experience, knowledge, and luck. You should expect that your early attempts
wonder
will
if you
fail,
have to
but
start
over time,
over if
you'll
you
be able
die.
to push yourself farther and farther. As you progress deeper into the Sanctum, you'll find a variety of treasures that will help you eventually fight your way to the dangers that await you at the end of its 4 floors. Eventually, by endgame, you may be able to push through all 4 floors to face the final boss. Every roguelike needs a resource to help you track how well the run is going. In the Forbidden Sanctum, it is your resolve, indicated by this bar here. As you explore the Sanctum, your resolve is threatened by the dangers within. When you lose all of your resolve, your Sanctum run ends. Your level of resolve is maintained between consecutive rooms on your run, but is only shown when you're in the Sanctum itself. The resolve mechanic applies equally to all build archetypes. Your resolve is reduced when you are hit by monsters or environmental hazards in the Sanctum, and these telegraphed attacks are not affected by regular Path of Exile defensive mechanics, such as evasion, armor, or block. While these attacks do some
that
nominal
actually
damage to
sounds
your regular
unfun.
life, the bulk of their impact is against your resolve.
I wonder if
This
you can
mechanic
increase
provides
your
a
resolve.
mechanism for tracking your progress between rooms, where your regular life pool would long ago have been recovered. Another aspect of the resolve system is that characters who are struggling can be ejected from
Just
the
don't
Sanctum
get hit,
without actually
forehead.
having to die, avoiding experience loss or hardcore death. So maintaining a healthy level of resolve is key as you navigate the Sanctum, and that means making careful choices of what rooms you enter. Let's have a look at some of the things that Sanctum rooms can contain. Afflicted rooms cause you to gain an affliction when you enter them. Afflictions make your Sanctum run more difficult. For example, reducing your resolve recovery, causing
you can
rewards to
recover
become hidden on the
resolve,
Sanctum
okay.
map, or causing Sanctum rooms to spawn volatile anomalies that follow you. These minor afflictions accumulate as you get deeper and deeper into a run, making it more challenging. Major afflictions exist and are a big deal. They have significant consequences, such as entirely preventing the recovery of resolve.
Oh, that's a nightmare.
So, a Sanctum run gets harder and harder as you pick up more afflictions. Sounds great. But every roguelike needs a way for you to gain power throughout your run. In the Forbidden Sanctum, that system is boons. Boons are beneficial buffs that help you as you progress through the Sanctum. Minor boons make things a little easier, such as slowing down monsters or adding a special shield to your resolve called Inspiration. Major boons don't come along often, but have large effects, such as preventing you from receiving more minor afflictions, or recovering your resolve to 50% the next time you run out. Due to the vast variety of afflictions and boons, no 2 runs are the same. Generally speaking, your best Sanctum runs are the ones where the afflictions you choose have little effect on you, and the boons either counteract them or have a large benefit for the strategy you're running. Some rooms in the Sanctum contain a fountain, which will restore some of your lost resolve. Others contain afflicted fountains that restore even more resolve at a cost. Rooms with a treasure reward contain chests full of the Templar Aureus currency, a type of gold coin that
what's it used
within
for?
their Sanctum. You'll also find some Aureus coins from monsters that you kill as you explore. These are picked up automatically, like
Replacement for
Azerite,
Parandus
and
coins.
are not tradable, and like your afflictions and boons, are lost when your Sanctum run ends. Some rooms contain a merchant who accepts your Aureus coins in exchange for boons. Plan your
Kadiro?
purchases carefully, as you may encounter the merchant again later on with even more expensive boons to purchase. Occasionally, the sinister powers controlling the Sanctum will present you with the choice of making an accursed pact. You are given several pacts to choose from and can even opt to take all that you are offered. All pacts have a big upside and a big downside, such as exchanging a portion of your maximum resolve for a random major boon. It's very dangerous to make a pact, but if you pick the right circumstances, your gamble could pay off. In addition to rewards that help you progress through the Sanctum, many rooms let you immediately receive
That's a lot of
Path
fountains.
Exile currency items, but with a twist. Whenever you're offered some currency items that you can receive right away, you are also offered a more valuable option that will be waiting for you after the boss fight at the end of the current floor of
18
the
chaos
Sanctum.
on completing the
It's a
Sanctum.
gamble, because
Damn.
if you fail your run before you reach and defeat the boss, you will not receive the reward you picked. Later on, you're offered the extreme temptation of getting a massive currency reward that is conditional on completing your entire Sanctum run without failing. At a specific point in the Forbidden Sanctum storyline, you'll discover a special altar that Templar relics can be placed on. These relics directly affect your Sanctum runs and are not lost when a run ends. They persist throughout the League as a permanent source of meta progression. Acquiring new and better relics is one of the ways you can push farther and farther with each run you try. Relics cannot be crafted and cannot be traded, as they represent your personal progression throughout the League.
Account-bound,
You'll accumulate
lame.
more than you can use simultaneously, so you'll have options to fine-tune your strategy from run to run. You can store your extra relics in the Relic Locker, a free storage space like the Expedition Locker. We don't want to spoil important story details, but the end boss of the Forbidden Sanctum can drop unique items from a pool exclusive to this league.
Ally
Today, we'd
damage
like to
reduction
show you
equal
a
to
unique
half your
amulet
chaos
called Eternal
res.
Damnation. This amulet offers a powerful way to gain additional elemental mitigation by introducing the concept of elemental damage reduction. Despite the drawback of reducing your maximum resistances, if you have sufficient chaos resistance, this is more than compensated for. Because of the roguelike nature of the Forbidden Sanctum, defeating the boss of a floor is a difficult achievement and hence rewards a lot of experience. You may fail on the way, so if you do manage it, expect a good experience boost for your achievement. Another reward you can find is a special type of relic called a Sanctified Relic that has mods that directly affect your character's build. You can only unlock one slot for this type of relic, and while these relics can't be crafted through conventional means, you may find special reward rooms in the Sanctum that can modify them. These relics exist for this league only and provide a boost to character power for players who are able to master the Sanctum. The Sanctum League offers a
Does that mean this league only as in they'll go away when it goes core, or what?
There's a lot to explore in the Sanctum.
Oh boy,
and we can't wait to hear about
Exarch
your
orbs.
experiences next week. In each expansion leading up to Path of Exile 2's release, we're improving Path of Exile's endgame, with new content to explore and improvements to how you customize your endgame experience. In the Forbidden Sanctum expansion, we're revamping the Atlas tree, reworking how Eldritch Altars function, and are introducing 2 new Atlas memories. The Atlas tree is generally working really well, but has a few problems we'd like to address. The tree offers you the ability to specialize in killing pinnacle bosses, providing extra rewards when you do so. While this sounds good on paper, it creates a situation where you're incentivized to specialize your tree for regular mapping, save up all of your boss fights, then respec fully into boss mode, and then do all of your saved up boss fights before speccing back again. Ideally, the design of the Atlas tree would let you spec into one build and then just play the game.
Alternate Atlas trees?
Boss bonuses from the Atlas tree, and have baked some of them into the actual base properties of the boss fights. For example, you don't need to allocate the Gaze into the Abyss notable that makes the Elder more likely to drop a Watcher's Eye, as he just has that drop chance built in.
That is a long-ass Abyss, Abyss node
that you encounter in every map. We also want you to be able to specialize into your favorite leagues even more deeply on the Atlas tree. For each of the 10 leagues that the tree lets you disable, we've added a bunch more passives to the tree. These new passives allow you to increase the league's spawn chance to much higher levels than currently possible, and juice the league even further than before. We are making a number of changes to Eldritch Altars that mostly affect their rewards, but will also affect gameplay decisions you make involving them. Some of the key changes include splitting up the basic
I want to
currencies,
see what that
Scarab, and Divination
Abyss
card rewards to be explicit in their
Abyss
description of what rewards
snake
you'll get.
is.
For example, instead of map bosses dropping 3 unknown basic currency items, the altar specifically says which currency item they'll drop. As part of this change, we've removed some of the lower value yet quite common currency rewards from the pool, such as Orbs of Augmentation and Orbs of Transmutation. Speaking of Scarabs, these will be less available from altars, but we've improved their availability elsewhere to offset this. Rusted Scarabs can now drop from the core drop pool, and we've added a vendor recipe that allows you to upgrade your
How
Scarabs
many of them will
up to
drop,
Gilded,
though, is
using
the
a
question.
normal 3-to-1 ratio. You can also perform this action from your fragment tab.
I'm
using the
excited
new
for
upgrade button.
core rusted
We've
scarabs.
made reward
Scarabs
packs
are
exclusive to
a
different
massively
influences, so that you
a
know
massive
which
boon to
influence
the
type
game.
to invest in if you want to target farm a certain reward. To give you a specific
Plentiful
example,
scarabs
if you
are the
run maps
best thing to
influenced by,
happen in the
say,
game.
Eater of Worlds, you'll see
Well,
divine
no, the
orbs
Atlas
from the
tree is,
basic
but
currency
after that-
reward more than twice as often as before. We've also rebalanced rewards so that choices that affect boss drops or influence monster drops are comparatively more valuable. The Wrath of the Cosmos keystone has been reworked. Previously, it was so rewarding that players felt obligated to use it despite its extreme level of difficulty. It has retained the risk versus reward element, but with the overall intensity toned down. You can now also get awakened gems from defeating Maven Witness map bosses. This additional reward helps further balance the expected returns from the various types of influence. For more detail
Which
on
is
these
cool.
changes, check out the Balance Manifesto we posted last week, or the upcoming patch notes. In the Lake of Calandra expansion, we introduced Atlas Memories. When applied to your Atlas, they unlock a sequence of maps that tells the story of an NPC's past. These stories manifest as specialized encounters that involve a new challenge and exciting rewards. In this expansion, we've introduced 2 new Atlas Memories, describing events related to bestiary and domination. The
Domination?
bestiary memory line allows you to capture harvest monsters as beasts for your menagerie. These
Oh.
harvest beasts can be used in 9 new beast crafting recipes.
Oh!
These recipes cover an array of options. For example, you can remove one of the special modifiers from a Watcher's Eye Jewel and then add another. This can have quotient results, but won't affect the life, mana, or energy shield modifiers.
Oh!
You can re-roll an awakened gem from one type to another.
Oh!
Another example is that you can also re-roll a synthesis implicit modifier.
Oh,
If your item
shit!
has more than one synthesis implicit, it will randomly
That
re-roll
Atlas
one of
memory is going to go for like 30
The
divines
Domination
each.
Atlas memory thrusts you into a tale of pantheon gods that stand watch over their shrines. Like regular shrines, these are guarded by monsters and emit a buff that empowers the monsters until you claim that buff for yourself. This Atlas memory introduces a new set of shrines with specialized buffs, guarded by rare monsters that drop tantalizing rewards. The Forbidden Sanctum expansion introduces a new type of shard that can drop from harbingers, fracturing shards.
Oh, you
When
can
combined
fracture
together with a full
item?
currency item, you get the fracturing orb, which behaves the same as the fracturing craft from Harvest. It can be used on any rare item with at least 4 modifiers.
That's a good
When the orb is
addition to the
applied, it
game.
locks one of the modifiers in place so that further crafting efforts do not affect that modifier.
That's
Items
cool.
fractured in this way can only have one fractured modifier. Previously, this crafting option was gated behind the Oshabi fight in Harvest. Now that it has been rehomed to Harbinger, the Harvest crafting option is no longer available. This means that you'll be
Alright,
able to
that's
use
lame.
your Harvest Life Force and Oshabi kills on other crafts. Because fracturing shards drop from Harbingers, you'll be able to target farm them by speccing into Harbinger content on your Atlas tree.
That's cool.
The Forbidden Sanctum expansion
Yeah, new
introduces
skills,
a number
whatever.
of new skill gems.
No, new
In
skills are
addition
going to be
some
cool.
new melee Val skills we'll discuss later in the livestream. There are
Ooh,
2 totally new skills
new
that we'd
Val
like to
skills?
unveil today. Volcanic Fissure is a new fiery slam skill that can be used with staves, maces, axes, and unarmed attacks.
Ooh,
Strike the
unarmed
ground to
skill.
create a chasm that winds towards your target. This chasm can path around corners before erupting as the fissure gets as close as it can reach.
Paths
It
around
releases a burst of
corners.
fiery projectiles that explode on striking the ground. Enemies hit by multiple impacts will take a lot of stacked damage. Use it up close for reliable bursts of damage.
And it can
or aim
shotgun?
far away to damage a larger area. Frozen Legion is an unusual spell, summoning a ring of icy statues that attack with your own weapon damage. This skill has multiple cooldown stacks and consumes all cooldown uses at once to summon
It's
a
the
statue for
Duresso
each available
skill.
cooldown. The statues perform a sweeping ice slash, and these sweeps can overlap, resulting in multiple hits against targets close to you. This spell can be used with staves, maces, and axes. The skill is particularly powerful with slow, heavy weapons, as while the statues will use your attack speed, you should instead prioritize the spell's own cast time and cooldown. This expansion also introduces many new Val melee skills.
Alright, cool new
As you know,
skills.
equipping a Val skill
Many new
grants
Val
you both the
melee
Val and
skills.
regular version of the skill. As you kill enemies, the gem charges up with their souls, and after a certain number are collected, the Val skill can be used once.
Later, Danny.
Most of the new Val skills introduced in this expansion are melee skills, and this results in an indirect buff to any melee builds that use one of these skills. Where previously you'd just be using your melee skill to kill enemies, you now get to periodically use a super-powered version of the skill. If you like Flicker Strike, you'll love Val Flicker Strike, as it really dials up the concept of letting fate take the wheel. Val Flicker Strike causes you to flicker dozens of extra times, slashing enemies. During this time, you don't deal any damage.
Oh, that's hilarious. I love it.
Due to not leeching or generating fortify stacks. When you finish flickering, if you survived of course, you'll be rewarded with a single huge hit of damage against each enemy you slashed. Vile
That's
Cleave is a new
cool.
Vile skill that buffs the behavior of its non-Vile version, in a similar way to how Loreweaver works. Vile Cleave triggers 2 buffs, one when you kill a rare enemy, and one when you kill either a rare or unique enemy. The latter is a strong buff to regular Cleave, which you can keep up almost permanently if you're able to kill rare or unique enemies often enough. The bonus for killing a rare enemy is that you get to steal its mods for a time. You can
Headhunter on Vile
Headhunter
Cleave?
without actually needing to find one. Overall, Vile Cleave is a pretty powerful upgrade to any melee build that
Headhunter on a skill?
That +2 radius buff is looking pretty good now, right? Don't hurt me. We'll showcase the other new Vile skills we're introducing over the coming week. The Forbidden Sanctum expansion introduces over 15 new unique items, from Sanctum exclusive uniques to ones that can be found from Path of Exile's pinnacle bosses. I'd like to show you 3 examples of these, designed by winners of our prior league's
Holy
boss kill
shit!
races. Progenesis is a unique amethyst flask that was designed by Ben and drops from the Uber Maven. It's a defensive flask that grants a mini version of the petrified blood effect, but without requiring you to be on low life. This is a useful tool to prevent you getting one-shot by large amounts of incoming damage in scary situations. Rational Doctrine is a unique jewel that was designed by Rawlings and drops from Uber Venarius. By manipulating your attributes, you can change how this jewel behaves. While the ideal dream outcome is that you manage to get your strength and intelligence tied for highest, enabling both of the benefits simultaneously, the jewel is still very powerful if it only grants your choice of permanent consecrated ground or permanent profane ground. Entropic Devastation is a pair of unique gloves that were designed by Gucci Pradas and drop from the Uber Shaper. Currently, the ways to get Spell Impale are very limited. These gloves provide the powerful property
Crit
of causing
strikes with
all of your
spells
spells to
impale?
impale on crit.
Damn.
So let's talk about unique weapons.
Starforge buff. Starforge
in-game
buff.
unique weapons. In many ways, the weapon is the most iconic and important item on a character, so it's very important that we make them exciting and worthy of their unique status. While some unique weapons have special properties that enable entirely new builds, others are best compared to powerful rare items as a primary source of your character's damage. We have to be very careful when pitching the power level of these unique weapons. If they're not powerful enough, then they're useless and are ignored.
Like
If they're
Starforge.
too powerful, then they discourage entire archetypes of characters from trying to find or craft rare weapons. Interestingly, the above problem doesn't apply to
Starforge
belts.
buff.
Despite Mageblood and Headhunter both existing as extremely powerful unique items, people still craft plenty of rare belts.
I'd be
Just
happy
because
with just a
Mageblood and
reversion
Headhunter
of
are
the
extremely
Starforge
rare,
nerfs.
people don't actually expect they'll reliably get one in a league. Players tend to treat them as luxury upgrades to their build, rather than something they're certain to get.
Are you gonna nerf
In this expansion,
Starforge's?
we're promoting 10 iconic but underused unique weapons to the same tier of rarity as Mageblood and Headhunter.
Oh.
We are buffing them a gigantic amount and are making them incredibly hard to find. Remember when Starforge used to be an exciting item? Well, after this change, it certainly is again. It still drops exclusively from the Shaper and the Uber Shaper, but it'll take a lot of runs or a lot of luck to earn it. Over the next week, we'll reveal the other unique
So they
weapons
buffed.
that
They
massively
reverted the
buffed.
Starforge
We've
nerf and they
targeted
made
around
it
10 iconic
Headhunter
underused
tier.
unique weapons and have generally buffed only their damage stat, but by a lot. We've made a number of changes to jewels that are covered in a recent balance manifesto, but in case you missed it, we want to quickly summarize what the changes are. In the Forbidden Sanctum expansion, we have made jewels a better source of ailment mitigation by buffing the values of ailment-focused jewel modifiers and adding new modifiers that enable mitigation to a wider variety of ailments than before. We have also removed some ailment mitigation modifiers that were only available on jewels through corruption, because there are now better options through the regular jewel mod pool. This also means that other desirable corruption modifiers, like immunity to corrupting blood, are more likely to roll. We want the moment
Cool.
of finding a unique jewel to be way more exciting than it currently is. We've added a handful of new, very powerful unique jewels and have removed some old, less interesting ones.
Was there a
example of
set
one
for
of these new
Starforge, or was it
unique
just
jewels
Shaper
is
uniques?
Firesong, which propagates
Starforge
any
is just
modifiers to
a
ignite
Shaper unique
mitigation
that drops
to
from the
other
Shaper.
elemental ailments. If you're able to substantially reduce the duration of ignites on you, then you
Void
can use
Forge is
Firesong to
like
basically
Starforge,
shrug
but
off
from the
any
Elder.
elemental ailment. For full information about the other changes to unique jewels, check out the Balance Manifesto post we made recently. We've rebalanced curses to make them stronger where they matter most against unique monsters and pinnacle bosses. We have buffed several
div
hex-related unique
card.
items and reworked unique items that previously
I
interacted
don't
with
think
Doom.
there's a Starforged div
To
card.
replace the Doomsday Keystone passive, we have brought back a version of an
There might
iconic
be.
curse-related
There
keystone
might be
from
one
the
for
past.
Shaper items. I can't
We've
remember.
introduced some powerful new unique items that interact with hexes, which we'll reveal in the lead up to launch.
Oh yeah, the
For more
curse
details
limit
on
up to
changes
9.
curses, check out the balance manifesto we posted recently, or the patch notes that will come out after the live stream concludes.
Oh, we are getting patch notes after the
When
stream.
we first
Cool.
created the Arch Nemesis monster mod system, our goal was to improve Path of Exile's outdated set of monster mods with new and interesting mechanics that have modern game balance.
Well, you
We feel that Arch
failed.
Nemesis did introduce a lot of interesting mechanics, but it unfortunately had several of its own problems. We have
Yeah,
replaced Arch
several.
Nemesis with a system that is more similar to the way monster mods worked in the past. The new monster mods are a lot simpler. They now each do one thing and very clearly state what they do.
Oh,
Each encounter
so
with a
nice.
rare monster is now less complex and is easier to understand in the heat of combat compared to Arch Nemesis. You'll still encounter challenging combinations of mods from time to time, but this emergent synergy will be rarer than it was under Arch Nemesis. The goal is that combat is interesting and varied, with moments that get your heart racing, but without the frustrations of the Arch Nemesis system. Let's talk about rewards. Under Arch Nemesis, it often felt mandatory to bring in a magic find culling character to kill some monsters for you in order to maximize your rewards. In the new system, we've added a significant pool of new rewards to rares, but the reward that is on the monster is hidden and not associated with a specific mod, so you don't know what kind of rewards you will get until you kill the monster. Rare monsters with more mods are more likely to have these special hidden reward bonuses. To find out more about other balance changes that are taking place in the Forbidden Sanctum, check out the patch notes, which will be available when the livestream ends. Over the last year or so, some
Oh
of our
boy,
senior
what you got for
developers have been
Ruthless?
tinkering with a more challenging way to play Path of Exile. We've been publicly alpha testing this mode, known as Ruthless, for the last month, and are planning to make it available to anyone who's interested alongside the launch of the Forbidden Sanctum next week. Ruthless is an optional additional character flag like Hardcore or Solo Self-Out that completely changes how Path of Exile feels to play. Ruthless is a lot more difficult than regular Path of Exile, but it doesn't achieve this by making the monsters harder to kill. It instead focuses on reducing character power through extreme item scarcity, limited crafting, and many other changes such as support gems being drop only. We've posted an article about the philosophy and rules of Ruthless on pathofexile.com/ruthless. We plan to release this mode alongside the Forbidden Sanctum expansion in a week. In addition to being a character flag like Hardcore or Solo Self-Found, it's also available as a modifier for private leagues. To be clear, the Forbidden Sanctum League content can be played in Ruthless with appropriately balanced rewards. Ruthless is still very experimental during 3.20, and we won't be afraid to make mid-league balance changes to it during this experimental phase.
Okay.
Ruthless is not for everyone, but so far it has found a supportive and growing group of players who enjoy the additional challenge that it brings. If it sounds like something you're interested in, then try it out next time you're looking for a new way to enjoy Path of Exile. This expansion also contains a number of small
QOL.
quality of life improvements. Some examples are Divine Vessels can now be used by right-clicking them rather than taking them to Sin.
Oh, nice.
On the player overhead life bar, the energy shield bar is split into a separate bar. You can now right-click an item as Temple of Atsuatl to see its layout.
Ooh.
And most importantly, beast crafting recipes that add mods to flasks now actually say what the mods do. We'll post more
Nice.
information about these and other quality of life improvements in the lead up to release. Today we're launching 2 new series of supporter packs, the Forge and Gemling packs. Each tier contains the pack's full face value and points, plus several exclusive microtransactions.
All right, let's see if they're
These
going to
packs will
tempt
only
me
be
into
available
wasting
for the
my
duration
money.
of the Sanctum Challenge
I
and will leave the
won't.
store
I'll
forever in
save
3
my
months.
money. I gotta save my
As
money.
always, these microtransactions are entirely cosmetic and do not affect your character's progression or power. The Forge series of supporter packs contains 6 exclusive microtransactions.
That is a cool-ass portal.
The Clockwork back attachment ramps up as you build a kill streak, building pressure and releasing it when your streak ends. The Delirious Hideout decoration lets you summon delirium fog in your hideout at will, complete with strange voices and terrifying apparitions.
That's cool.
Okay, you're looking a little pale.
Oh shit, Togmazu. The NPCs have the rare
The
boss
Forge Guard
thing?
armor set summons a hammer and anvil so that everyone nearby can watch you craft.
That's neat.
The Ethereal Fusing effect turns your item linking attempts into a spectator sport. If you manage to hit a
Oh.
6 link, people watching are even prompted to send a congratulatory message.
That's cool! That's cool!
Summoning the Crow Storm portal effect causes a murder of crows to erupt from the portal. The portal becomes dormant if you are too far away from it, causing the crows to take to the skies. The High Templar weapon effect smites the undead you fight and scours the souls of those you put to rest. The Gemling Pack series also has 6 exclusive microtransactions.
You can get Kadiro from a pack?
The Beehive weapon effect lets your weapon
Oh,
host to a
no.
swarm of angry bees, which erupt from the hive whenever you hit an enemy with the weapon. Critical hits cause the hive to send out its best warriors. The Stampede Quicksilver Flask makes you the leader of your own personal rower herd. Activating the flask causes a host of ghostly rowers to charge alongside you. This is the Gemling Artificer armor set. It is inlaid with gems that match the gems you've socketed in your items.
Oh,
Crafting gems
man.
with gem cutters prisms, Val orbs, or regrading lenses visualizes the process for all to see. This armor set also includes alternate gem level up effects. Prospero's ring blesses you with a constant shower of coins, and it helps you thank players you've traded with through a hearty fist bump. The consuming ooze pet bounces alongside you and devours
God.
corpses in your wake, spitting out a tidy pile of bones.
They ramped
Finally,
up.
this pack allows you to reunite with Kadiro Perandus, inviting him to your hideout as a vendor. In addition to buying items from you and using his connections to accept your divination cards, he'll provide commentary on your goods, equipment, and anything else he sees fit to judge you for.
That might be a little too much to drink, even for me.
Oh
Kadiro
my
has
god.
hundreds of lines of voice acting.
What? Oh, a mighty headhunter. I'm so...
Comments on your
impressed.
gear!
Try to duck when the brain fragments splatter everywhere. You wouldn't want to sully your armor.
Holy shit! I need Kadira.
These
I need
packs
all
are
of
available
this!
right now at pathofexile.com/purchase. Purchases like these directly fund the ongoing development of Path of Exile 1 and 2, and we really appreciate your support. Meanwhile, the Knight and Rogue packs leave the store forever in 1 week, so now's your last chance to purchase them. The Calandra
I
edition
can't
of Kyric's
afford
Vault Pass
this.
is
I
only
need
available
it.
until the end of the Calandra League, and will be replaced with a new set of unique items when the Forbidden Sanctum launches. By the way, we're hoping to film Season 11 of Build of the Week once the Forbidden Sanctum comes out. If you want to submit your build for the season, share your build guide on the class forums on pathofexile.com.
Oh god.
Next up,
They
we've got the
really
Q&A with
stepped
Ziggy D.
up
Once
cosmetic
that ends, we'll post
design
the
in the
full
last
patch notes
year.
for the Forbidden Sanctum. Over the next week, our community team will post the expansion's challenge rewards, information on how to update your item filters, all new and changed gems, and information on how to prepare for launch. On launch weekend, we expect to release the new mystery box, and we'll follow up with the new Kyric's Vault Pass in the days after launch.
Oh
Thanks for
god,
joining us
Kadiro's
and
probably
checking
in
out
the
Forbidden
$90
Sanctum.
pack.
We can't wait to join you in Rayclast on December 9th. We'll begin the Q&A shortly, so please get your questions ready in chat.
Oh god, there's so much cool in the supporter packs! Oh, I can't afford it! Alright, so I'm cautiously optimistic about all this. Seems pretty cool. Kadiro's 90. Oh. 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 That sucks. They know people will want that.
Good morning, Exiles, and welcome back for another Q&A session with none other than Chris Wilson. Good morning, Chris. Thank you for joining us once again.
Oh, thanks for being here as well.
I'm very keen to jump into chatting about Forbidden Sanctum straight away, but as always, you folks can put your questions in the chat, and our helpful team of moderators will pull some out for us to answer. So, Path of Exile gets to be so many things. It has gotten to be so many things over the years. Do you ever really feel like you just don't need to make another game in any other genre because you can just make a league that is that genre? Like make a farming league or a city building league or a roguelike league?
I guess it's one perk of the job, but we always try to make sure that when we're designing our leagues, they're games that fit within the idea of being an action RPG. Like they have to involve you killing monsters and finding items in order to fit within Path of Exile.
Yeah, so even when you're farming, you're killing monsters, or even when you're fishing, you're killing monsters. Like
Yeah,
what,
there's
the
a
one where we pull
bit of an
monsters out of the
agenda
water.
there, Ziggy.
I was planning on pushing the fishing angle.
So that's when you get on the boat and have your fishing league, right?
And you like pull monsters out of the water, right? Like giant fish that you then battle with as they flop around on the deck. That makes sense.
Interesting. That one's under NDA. Sorry.
Oh, I'm in trouble. How do you gain access to the new Forbidden Sanctum?
So basically, every area you're playing in has a portal that gives you access to it. It basically takes you to the next room that you're playing in the Sanctum in your current run.
Ah, okay. So to clarify then, the Sanctum's divided into rooms, each with their own encounter, and then floors with a boss at the end of each. And then there's the whole Sanctum itself, which is multiple floors?
That's right. So the Sanctum itself has 4 floors, each one guarded by a boss at the end, with the ultimate boss fight at the end of the 4th floor. And each of the floors has 8 rooms, and so a maximum length Sanctum run would be 32 consecutive rooms, which you'd play out over potentially 32 maps. But it's worth emphasizing that, as with most roguelikes, you don't just install it and then happily play through to the end in one go. It's something that you get further and further with each run as you get better meta progression, as you learn more about it, and as you have good versus bad runs.
I presume it like level scales to the character kind of as you're leveling still, as per
Yes.
regular leagues. Is there any potential, do you think, that someone who's like quite good at the game maybe gets through on their first try, or is this quite definitely you're gonna have to make it a bit further each time?
We never underestimate the players, right? Like we will try as hard as we can to achieve something, and then players will
somebody's
just blow right past
absolutely
it because there
going
are
to get
millions
here
of
on a
them.
level
They're pretty
10
damn good at
character.
the game. So I don't want to make any promises there, but it certainly is the case that in order to get really deep into the Sanctum, you have to know a lot about it. You have to have some experience with it. You have to ideally have a good character with a capable build. You'd ideally have a good setup of your relics, which are the meta progression. To get to the deeper floors, it certainly requires that you've assembled relics that fit with your strategy. And it also helps to be having a good run. I can't emphasize that enough. It's very roguelike, where you're picking up these random boons, these random afflictions. And if you get the bad afflictions on you early on, that run is not going to last long. If you get a really good set of boons, you could have a really deep run, much further than you otherwise would at your current level.
This is so you mentioned like 30
I hope
something
this is
rooms.
good.
That's like the
This
biggest
is
thing we've
such
had
a
back
cool
from
idea. I
subscription
hope
margins.
it's
Even
good.
building the temple was around 11 maps to build a full temple and then run that. And that was like that's a pretty sizable thing. So this is a lot bigger than that then.
That's correct, but a lot of the rewards you're getting along the way, and so it's entirely fine to play the Sanctum a few floors in and then fail and play again, and it's still a rewarding experience, assuming you don't gamble on pushing the rewards right to the end of the entire Sanctum run. But it's unlikely you're going to choose to do that until you are really confident in your ability to do this run particularly well.
Yeah, so I saw the reward options are like take a tiny reward now, take a decent reward at the end of the floor. So you're like, oh, I can make it 3 or 4 more rooms. And then there's the really big one at the end as well. And there's stack, right, if you get a bunch of them.
That's right, and it was kind of funny because in the live stream I said this is a massive reward, and we're showing like a few Chaos Orbs as the reward. So of course, chat memed that as much as they could. The thing is, okay, so let's do some math here, right? It's 32 rooms in a Sanctum run, and deferrals make up something like 40%. Deferral is what I'm internally calling the offer reward here. It makes up around
Just
40%
a Void
of the
Forge
rooms.
card.
And so if you're offered an average of a whole bunch of Chaos Orbs, I think the example there had like 18, but obviously the currency numbers will vary a lot, and you were to defer those entirely to the end of the Sanctum run, you would be getting hundreds of currency, and it can have divines, mirrors, and various other stuff in there moderately rarely. So it's entirely possible that were you to defer everything to
people
the
are
end
going to
of
get
the big
so
gamble,
salty
you
when
could
they get a
receive
mirror
very, very large
rewards
payout.
choice and
Now, of course,
immediately fail
deferring
the
it to the end of the
Sanctum.
Sanctum is a crazy strategy. We don't recommend that. It will end in tears. Only do this if you're confident in this run. It's set up so that the rewards for immediately taking them are still worthwhile. If you play the Sanctum and just took the reward immediately, it's a decent amount of currency that makes it worthwhile on top of the other rewards you're getting. But there's always the temptation of the end of the floor. The
I
floor
might
one
play
is
a
the one that's
summoner in
juiced a
this
little bit.
league.
Of course, in later floors, the end of the Sanctum doesn't look very far away, and if you know you're having a good run, you've got confidence, then why not take the extra reward by doing the big gamble?
This deferral mechanic's super interesting, actually, because you've designed leagues where you get like some reward immediately, and then you've designed leagues where you do like a lot of content and then get a ton of rewards all at once. So this allows the players to have control over that mechanic and make that decision for themselves. Have you like kind of... Yeah, sorry.
I was just going to say, this is because roguelikes have good runs and bad runs. If you're having a bad run, take the rewards
Right.
now and get as far as you can. If you're having a great run, that gives you the ability to make an ultimatum-like gamble.
Yeah, right. You can make those strategic decisions kind of based on like, this has been a brutal slog. I am no way am I getting through this. I'm gonna check out now. Got it. Makes sense. Have you thought about like the player mindset of just like, I always gonna take the big one? Because I look at it and I'm like, I'm always gonna take the one, and I'm the biggest one. I'm never gonna get it because I'm always gonna die.
Obviously, players want to min-max stuff. They want to
Can
get
you
the best result, but the
multiplayer
best
a
result may
Sanctum?
pragmatically say, I'm going to take this reward that's in a shorter time frame. Plus, okay, so anyone who's done economics or finance understands the concept of the time.
I want to know
value of
if you can
money. $1 now is
multiplayer the
worth more than
Sanctum.
$1 later because you can put it to use right now. And when these full Sanctum runs taking 30 maps, maybe getting a pile of Chaoses, potentially some higher currency like Exalts and Divines, a few maps from now is actually better for your character development than getting a very large pile in 20 maps. Maybe, especially when there's a conditional element to that. It may be that getting something a few maps from now that you can then trade to get more progression is actually better for you. So there are a lot of hard decisions which we put on the table here for the players.
Damn, I'm gonna have to dig out my old economics textbooks.
Path of
Okay.
Exile, right?
Yeah, now you're speaking our language. Let's talk the resolve mechanic. So to clarify, resolve is an independent health bar for
Yes.
the Forbidden Sanctum specifically, and when your resolve runs out, you're kicked out of the Sanctum, dead or not, right?
That's correct. Now, I noticed the reaction when we're announcing the resolve system there is a lot of players said, why? As though this is a negative thing, but I want to have a chance to explain it. So we tried very hard initially to work out a system here that works with your player life. Then there's no additional bars. The problem is, though, Path of Exile's player life fluctuates up and down rapidly. You're constantly healing yourself. You've got recovery. There's no persistence to this. Your player life is like how
Oh, yeah,
out of
they
breath you
absolutely
are,
could
is
not
what
have
I
used
mean.
player
It's
life
a
for
very
this.
brief. It's almost like your heartbeat to some extent.
Without
And
getting
so
rid of the
if we
failure
were to say,
mechanic
look,
entirely.
you lose some life in this room, then when you come back into the next room, that life is going to be missing. So you've got a kind of a progression through the Sanctum. Then they just press 1 and heal themselves fully and carry on playing.
Yeah.
And so our experiments where there's no meta progression in it do not function as a roguelike. There has to be a thing where you get worn down. Having said that, half of the plan here, half of the
I
strategy
think
for doing a Sanctum is
300
work out
is
how you are
low.
recovering your resolve, and there are lots of different ways. It's along the lines. I mean, it's as simple as if your resolve is lower than you'd like because the Sanctum one is one you're struggling with, then you have to start pathing through various things.
300
like
is
choosing
probably
boons
too
which enable
low.
more resolve recovery. And every time you have to choose something focusing on resolve recovery, you're implicitly losing some other thing you could be getting, like more rewards or a different axis of power. And so the degree to which you're struggling with the run forces you to focus on staying alive and not getting rewards. But conversely, this means if you have
I like
a
the
good run where
Malachi
you're not
statue
struggling
behind
at all,
Chris.
you can just kind of ignore your resolve and focus on becoming super powerful. And this works really well as a roguelike, and I would really encourage people to try it out before judging it based on the fact that it's an additional life bar. We don't add those kind of things, for no reason. And it means as well that you don't have as much pressure on your actual player life. And it's very interesting how build agnostic this is, because it creates a situation where different Path of Exile players can experience the Sanctum in similar ways, despite the fact their builds play quite differently.
This is why this Q&A is super good to do, because you get a chance to explain this, like how you arrived at this design decision that you can't really do in the reveal, because it would bog down the reveal for like 10 minutes. So that's super interesting. You actually touched on a topic I wanted to ask. So Resolve seems to reward high mobility playstyles that can completely avoid attacks. So since mitigation doesn't affect resolve damage, how does it feel playing like a low mobility tanky melee character in the Sanctum? Won't you kind of just be failing runs due to chip damage that otherwise is not a threat to you?
We thought of that. So we've made it so that the resolve damage is lower if you're close to a target. Essentially, if you're melee and you're right in their face, then you take less resolve damage than if you're further away.
Okay.
And so attacks are also very telegraphed.
300 is probably still too low, but that's an interesting solution.
You probably should consider at least a Quicksilver Flask if you're going into the Sanctum, so that you have some ability to respond to stuff, but that's normal Path of Exile.
I mean, who
play.
plays without a
Even
Quicksilver?
in Ruthless, where there's significantly less mobility skills, Quicksilver Flasks still exist. The other thing is, if your build is one where you're expecting to take a lot of resolve damage, just spec your relics into resolve recovery. Relics are your meta progression that you can choose. They're locked in for the Sanctum run, and you keep them between runs. So if you feel that you want more resolve recovery, get relics that do that. And if you're a character that's given up mobility, has some ability at the expense of maybe less damage or less tankiness or something, then there are other things they can specialize their relics into if they have enough resolve.
That taking less damage at close range.
Do you
things
recover
is
resolve
that, like, kind
every
of
resolve
a
to some
fast
degree
shot
every room
mechanic
or
applied to
floor?
projectile
Is a
attacks or something?
question I
It's
want
like
answered.
that for all of the resolve stuff, and this is
Yeah.
something that we've realized is necessary because the melee and tanky characters get up close, and so it's better for that to be balanced around it.
All right, cool. And just to clarify for people, if you are playing hardcore, this means you can fail the Sanctum without dying. So I was like, I thought it
That's
was very
correct.
hardcore league.
Right. The intention of the Forbidden Sanctum is that you will fail your Sanctum many, many times on the path to finding all of the good stuff in it. And so if that meant the hardcore character was dead and had to start again, it just wouldn't be a hardcore compatible league. And
Yep.
so a side effect of Resolve is that hardcore characters can actually engage with it without putting themselves in mortal danger.
That is
It
a
also
very good
means, of
point.
course, with the way that experience penalties work, high-level characters can play without putting their current experience so much on the line. I mean, it's still very. I mean, I've died in the Sanctum numerous occasions with legitimate player life deaths because I was careless, but
Mm.
it's certainly easier from a player life point of view than, say, high-level mapping is.
Well, that kind of speaks to the concept of Resolve as a whole. Resolve is about how well you've done over the course of the entire dungeon, whereas your health is how well you've done in this specific engagement, which is
Yeah.
an interesting kind of like two-faceted approach that we don't normally have in Path of Exile. Like, if
That's
you do bad
correct.
at the start of a map, it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect the rest of the map, right?
Yeah, and it's also meant that if we want something to be dangerous, we up the resolve a bit. We don't up its damage, threatening the actual characters.
Interesting. Cool. All right. So to clarify on the sanctified relics, these are the ones.
Wait, do
Where you
special,
effects weapon
environmental, and
your
resolve
character
attacks not
outside of the
damage
sanctum?
health?
That's correct. Yeah, both inside and outside. So these are a permanent power progression for characters. They're hard to get. They're very end game. You know, we're talking late maps here, and they're obviously due to the fact that they can't be crafted and can't be traded means that you are very limited in
Account-bound
how
items
many
is a
of these you get
bad
access
precedent.
to. But they are very powerful, and because of the fact that they can't be crafted or traded, we've made sure to juice the mods on them and make sure it's not watered down. These are relics which will significantly affect the character power of your build. Now, they are shared among all the characters on your account, or meaning you can equip, from the same pool. So it does mean that if you find one for one character and you want to use it on a different build, it's entirely possible to.
Very cool. How does the sanctum work in a party then?
Okay. Got a bunch of rules here. Short answer is, as with all recent leagues, we want party play to work, but we also want it so that people don't feel encouraged to cheese things through party play. And so the philosophy basically is, like, one of the problems with Arch Nemesis with the whole culling situation is that players realize when they find a certain monster that, oh, I now have to engage with other humans in order to get maximum result here. And we want Sanctum to work in a party without creating the feeling that you have to engage with humans in order to get the best out of your Sanctum. It shouldn't feel like you only want to go in there when you have a whole bunch of friends who are online at the same time. So we've come up with rules that enable you to play as a party, and certainly there are some benefits for doing so, but there is also some liability to it. And so the way it works is the Sanctum is always that of the map owner. The person who created the map is the one whose Sanctum you're playing.
Of course.
So if Ziggy and I are playing and we're doing Ziggy's Sanctum, he's the one getting the progress for that. I'm there to help, and afterwards it would be nice if he reciprocated and we did my Sanctum as well, but it's primarily your one that's progressing. And so this means that you are the one who makes the choices about stuff. This is the one, it's your relics matter there. We're using your gold, your boons, your afflictions, and your resolve bar. That's the important thing to note.
Oh,
If you
players share
invite
a
other
resolve
party members
bar?
into your sanctum with you, they don't just get a free ability to have their own resolve bar, which doesn't matter, or they can run around and distract the monsters. You are, as a party, sharing the resolve bar with the map owner. And this means that
300
extra
is
party members
definitely
can't just
too
go and
low.
suicide themselves on stuff to distract the monsters. They actually have to be playing properly. Party member deaths do not end the current run, so if they happen to die legitimately, that doesn't screw up what you're doing. There's a bunch of other small rules there, like party members can view the merchant and view the map, but only the map owner actually makes the choices and purchases stuff. In practice, what this means is it's fun to bring people in and play together. It does give you a small advantage from a combat point of view if you have multiple players, but you do all have to be playing cohesively, so only bring in party members you trust. You can also drop party members in and out, so by that I mean, I can play this room with Ziggy and the next one with someone else, and because it's sharing my resources, that's compatible without having to have like a party resolve bar that's reserved for a specific group of people and so on.
All right. So if I bring a viewer in and they want to sabotage me, they can run in front of all the monsters.
Yep.
Great.
That would be hilarious.
There are going to be lots of trolls
Please.
offering Sanctum help.
We got a couple of chat questions on the mechanics here specifically as well. Also, I just wanted to add another one. When you die in the Sanctum, via resolve death,
Yes.
and your character flops on the ground like a fish, are you fully protected from taking any damage from any source, dots, anything like that? You guys have checked, right?
Yes. I checked this yesterday. The list of things you are like. I'll read it to you. Cannot be damaged. Minions take no actions. You have grace period. Dealt no damage. Minions have no damage. Minions cannot be damaged. There's a whole bunch of stuff.
Good.
You're
Okay,
protected.
cool. Excellent. I just had to make 100% sure. We didn't want any people like, I fell over in the Sanctum and then I died when I couldn't control my character. So, good. Excellent. Losing a resolve death, TK Hectic asks, is your XP lost or is your XP protected?
My belief is, correct me if I'm, yeah. So that was the dev check. You don't lose experience if you fail out through to resolve, and that's because it isn't actually.
I wouldn't have
It doesn't
expected
increase
you
the deaths count.
to.
You don't lose experience. You don't lose hardcore characters. It's entirely basically fainting and being ejected.
Gotcha. Malik asks, do we need to interact with the League mechanic every zone, or can we somehow build them up or save them to run them all at once?
You do interact with it in every zone, and it's not a particularly long encounter. These aren't very large rooms, but yes, you should interact with every zone.
Yeah, sometimes you literally
Do you
just
have to full clear
you
the
probably
room?
just portal in and click a fountain and leave, right? And then go back to your map?
The structure is that every room, so the basic way it works is you take the portal and you appear in a small antechamber, which enables you to make a choice. You click on the map, have a look at what the options are of where you want to go next. You can look a few ahead, and you lock in a choice. And then a door, one of the 3 doors, or up to 3 doors in that room, slides open. So you go through. Now you're in the actual main sanctum room. So you do whatever the objective is in there, which may be just getting to the exit or killing the guards or whatever. And this is not designed to take long. It's meant to not interrupt your mapping from a pace point of view. And then you end up in the reward room. Every room has a reward, and these vary from all the things we've talked about, fountains, affliction fountains, merchant, treasure room, and so on, or the offer one, which is the item deferral, and a whole bunch of other. I should add, there are a lot of other reward rooms we haven't shown in the live stream. Like the goal here is players explore and find stuff, so we only showed a subset in the announcement. And so after you've done that, you're right back into the map you were playing, and so it's a relatively quick process and does improve your sanctum progress or give you some actual currency with each room you play.
Yeah, for some behind the scenes insight here, for this one we were specifically like, let's try and avoid spoilers as much as possible for like the things you can discover in the Forbidden Sanctum. So
Yeah.
there's a
Fair
bit of
enough.
discovery process there.
There's a lot of discovery, and there's quite a lot of story as well. Like there's an actual reason why the Sanctum has,
Cool.
got this bad person in there and what's going on with that. But we'd much prefer people actually enjoy that rather than us dumping it all on them here.
And bosses too, I'm very excited.
Yeah, lots of boss fights.
4 new
Cool.
endgame boss fights all in a row.
I was thinking there might just be like 2 or something. Very good. Official Arrow asks,
Which
do
is
totems,
4 more than
when they
Lake
take
of
damage,
Calandra
lose your
had,
resolve? And I'll
apparently.
tack onto that minions as well.
No, they do not.
Great. Excellent. Does self-inflicted damage affect resolve?
I don't think it does. There's a lot of shrugging. Nah. It's only damage that's tagged with affecting your resolve, like ones from the monsters.
Okay, so there's an
There
active
are
tag
some,
on the damage.
let's say, environmental hazards in the Sanctum. You can see it briefly in some of the footage of some big model orbs flying around and so on, and that kind of thing. An object in the middle of the room that's spewing out laser beams that rotates, for example. That stuff will hurt your resolve, but it's really telegraphed. Like it's very easy for people to deal with.
Well, there you go. That answers Monkey Dota's question as well. So we'll move on to the next topic, which is endgame changes. So the need to swap between bossing and mapping in the Atlas trees was definitely something that felt awkward. So I'm pretty excited to learn a bit more about that change. Many of the nodes have been rolled into the game as default now for bossing. But are there any passives that remain on the Atlas tree for bossing reward stuff? I'm guessing there are still nodes, for example, to enable the Uber versions of the various bosses, at least.
Yes, there are Uber nodes still, so if you want to play the Uber fights, you can allocate the passive. But thankfully, that's a very small investment that you wouldn't do particularly often. And the main problem, which is where you feel like you have to fully spec into bosses and then fully unspec back into mapping, which is a large investment, is not there anymore. And it's worth noting the kind of people that are doing Uber pinnacle farming can afford the regrets to flick a passive on and off from time to time. But basically, the plan is that you can play bosses at any time without feeling like you have to respec your tree or you're missing out on something.
I mean, it's also important to note that the Ubers are not the default bosses now, thankfully. Very good. Some of the allocatable boss nodes made things more challenging in addition to more rewarding. So,
Yes, I'd
for
like to know
example,
if those get
Inevitable
rolled in.
Ambush, which added a second Guardian to the Guardian fights. are things like this made default behavior now, or are they still passives, or are they just gone?
The ones that add extra challenge and rewards are gone for now, but this isn't a we don't like them, they're gone forever. It's a case that we
Oh,
want to bring them
I
back in
like the
form.
thing where you get
And we have
extra
some plans for
guardians.
this. They probably won't be an at 320 release, but we do have some cool ways where basically the ability to opt in to the challenge and reward is not going to come from the tree because that creates the problems we've discussed, but it will come from somewhere. And so players will be able to get their challenge and reward back for those. But in the meantime, obviously, there's still a lot of ways you can ramp up the juice and challenge from these encounters.
Jack was wondering if Atlas Tree will be viewable today alongside patch notes, or is that a little bit later, maybe?
I don't think it's today, but our expectation is to release it before release so that you do get a chance to plan around
Oh,
it.
I wanted to see it today.
Okay. Reign of Pain Games asks, there was mention of boss nodes being moved from the Atlas Path to Tree the bosses directly. To avoid what happened last league with loot, are there any number changes happening with the modifiers?
I'm unaware of any. I mean, we've tried very hard to communicate everything as clearly as we can in the patch notes. I mean, I can't promise we haven't missed anything, but we have scoured stuff in order to try to make sure it's complete, and also written the live stream and our information up based on this kind of stuff. So we are trying very hard to disclose any small changes like that which would have an impact. I'm not aware of any stuff we haven't spoken about there.
All right, let's talk a bit about rare monsters. I think a lot of players are very happy to read the manifesto about the replacement of the arch nemesis system for rare monsters with a new, more, I guess, nemesis.
Chris looks sad because that was his
Do you think
baby.
that this new system will still achieve the goals that you set out to achieve with arch nemesis, though?
So the goal of Arch Nemesis initially was modernization of the effects and their balance. We felt that the old monster mods were just really old. We just basically needed to give them a fresh coat of paint. Now our fresh coat of paint included some stuff that players didn't like. And
A
so
lot of
we're
stuff
trying very
players
hard to
didn't
make sure
like.
the new system does achieve the core goals of Arch Nemesis without having the things that people didn't like. And so to that effect, it now does use modern effects. You know, there's a lot of cool stuff that we weren't doing with the system that was 2 systems ago, and the balance is appropriate for current Path of Exile. So it's definitely ticked those boxes, but at the same time, it's trying to be much more understandable and simple and a bit less in your face than Arch Nemesis was.
On a very kind of just like rough feelings basis, how do you think like an old arch nemesis compares to a new rare monster on average?
My impression so far is that the monsters are on average a bit easier, but the key thing is this: a previous Arch Nemesis mod had a grab bag of stuff that it did. It generally made the monster do more damage in a generic sense. It also had an interesting thing that happened gameplay-wise, and it added a bunch of defensive properties, and often more, often on multiple axes. And so it cohesively had a kind of a, this is a fire, it's going to screw you up with fire in 4 different ways kind of theme. And so therefore it applied to pretty much any character, right? It would have some way of interacting with them. The new mods are very simple. The new mods say, cool, you're not going to be able to do much fire damage to me, or I'm going to do a lot of fire damage to you, or I have a magma barrier. They just do one thing. And therefore they're very, let's just say, Boolean against certain players. I'll give an example. Let's say you run into a rare monster with 2 mods, and those 2 mods are that it will blind you and that it's resistant to fire damage. So if you're playing a cold caster, neither of those mods affects you whatsoever. They're literally nothing. And so you can kill a monster easily and it doesn't do anything extra to you. Great. And on average, you're often encountering this. But if you're playing a fire melee character, it blinds you, which is going to affect your accuracy, and the fire damage is going to be mitigated against it. This will be a harder fight. It will wake you up a bit when you encounter it. And so you're going to find this situation where a lot more monsters are just speed bumps along the way and aren't causing a problem, and sometimes there'll be one which causes you issues because of your build. And so it's quite a different experience for different players, but overall, the monsters are at a glance much simpler in terms of what they do, and you're not encountering the onerous, long, frustrating fights every single area like you were before.
See, I like
Good.
that 'cause you feel good.
That's
when
what
you're
I was
playing a
hoping
build
for.
And you run into a challenge, you're like, "Ha, my build doesn't care about this at all." You feel clever, you know. Even though it's just kind of the luck of the draw on that one, but yeah, that feels good. So on the
I
modifiers,
can't believe Vol
only
Cleave
doing
gets
what they say.
Headhunter.
Fantastic.
That's so cool.
However, there still kind of remains a problem where this information is in a small text list at the top of the screen.
Vol
Have
Flicker
you guys
Strike is
explored
so
the
silly. I
idea of
love it.
color coding the new modifiers in some way to help players identify them, or maybe using other systems like, I don't know, little symbols.
Yeah, the color
or
coding of
maybe
the
color-coded glows on monsters
mods
to
was a
denote
cool
certain
idea.
effects and so on.
They do have visual effects on them in many cases, so you often can see what a monster does based on what it looks like. But otherwise, what we focused on here is to succinctly and completely describe what the monster does in text. And this is a list that has more words than Arch Nemesis, because Arch Nemesis would have something like Flamewalker, and then what does that mean? Who knows? You'd learn, of course, but there were 70 plus of them.
Oh, yeah.
And so now it specifically says what it does. This may mean more reading. It may not be a good endpoint here, right? It might be that we need to make the things slightly more concise, but I'm really worried about us getting back into keywording, because part of the problem with keywording was then a player can't look at the keyword and actually understand what it does. So I don't know. Longer term, there are probably solutions here. Maybe the right answer is to put some color coding back. Currently, it's not color coded. That was something which went with the keywords in Arch Nemesis. I mean, it could be restored, but we'd like people to play and give us some feedback. If you guys can suggest how the mods can be made further clear, so that you can easily identify them while you're playing, that's really useful. Have a go.
It's
We're open to
so
feedback here. We want to
funny
make sure the monster mod
in a
system
sad
achieves our
way
goals and is
that
still
they
easy to
set up
read.
Arch Nemesis in an
Yeah,
attempt
I
to
think
make
the color coding
things
would be a good thing. It could be something
clearer,
that could be
to make
done
monster
gradually over
mods
time as well.
clearer.
Like, you start with
And it did the
elementally aligned
exact
things that are
opposite
color-coded
in the
alongside their
worst
elements,
way.
for example.
One thing we have done, and this isn't something we spoke about on the live stream, is that the text under the monsters that says like resist fire, resist cold, or vulnerable to fire, vulnerable to cold, the one that kicks in when they have approximately 15% resistance, was feeling a bit spammy alongside all these mods. Like when we're asking you to read 2 or 3 short lines of mod text, having like resist fire, resist cold underneath it as well was quite a lot. And so we've moved those to little symbols over on the right of the life bar. And so if you're the kind of character who cares about which monsters are fire resistant, you're just glancing at symbols now rather than trying to read text. And that's helped declutter it quite a
Okay.
bit.
Depending
See,
on
that's
how
great.
clear
That
that
sounds
is, I
awesome.
like
I
it.
look forward to seeing that. Yeah, it's kind of like what I was talking about. Yeah, little symbols in the life bars. Great idea. Excellent. Good to know. So
Okay.
the loot goblin issue, it seems like it'll be solved by players simply just not knowing which monster is going to be the big loot pinata. Good news indeed. But how do you feel about the loot conversion system overall? Because I thought this system was quite interesting, but maybe a little bit tainted by how it was implemented. So for the unfamiliar, the loot conversion system is this new system that takes what a monster would usually drop and converts it into a new type of reward, like all currency, for example.
So we've reviewed the loot conversions and added some new ones, dropped some old ones, like the ones that just gave you piles and piles of flasks, for example. As far as I know, that doesn't exist anymore. And we've gone through and made sure to use the feedback that people have had. So the way it works is rare monsters drop more items than regular monsters. By itself, that should be enough reward, but we want it to be interesting, and we want people to feel like they're really, that there's an extra reason to kill rare monsters, because you could otherwise ignore them. And so you basically have these bonus drops that can occur, and bonus drops include conversions, but they also include a lot of other stuff. And there's a chance of getting the bonus drops that's proportional to the mods that are on the monster. For example, if a monster has 2 mods on it, then it has 2 chances to get a bonus. If it has 4 mods, it has 4 chances to get a bonus. And the individual mods have higher chances, where I believe like the more difficult ones, like for example, if there's one that's similar to one of the old Pantheon mods and that it does, like it evokes some, god who comes and smites you, for example, then it is significantly higher. There's a significantly higher chance that it's going to have a special drop here. And what you find is when a monster has, the convergence of all of the really big mods in it, it's a hard fight, that results in there being a very high chance of one of these special drops, which is potentially a conversion or potentially one of the other ones we haven't spoken about yet. And this results in a thing where you have a lot of incentive to fight rare monsters, a lot of incentive to fight hard rare monsters, but you don't feel that you can assess a monster beforehand and then try to min-max what your exact party composition should be in order to get the maximum rewards from that fight.
Which is
We've
good.
also tried to smooth this out a bit more. Like the thing in the past where you could potentially, under the right circumstances, get dozens and dozens of divines from a monster, and then everyone else feels like they're getting nothing, wasn't great. So we're trying to make sure that there are still spikes, but it's a bit less spiky than before. There's a bit more spread across all of the different things, and a lot of the bad options are a bit better now.
A lot more variety too, it sounds like. Is this something you've considered doing to map bosses as well? Like, map bosses have definitely gotten better over time in terms of reward and more interesting, which I like. But it still seems like, in a lot of cases, they could get a little spicier.
Yeah, it's worth looking into. Yeah, we've been focusing this cycle on trying to get the monster mods into a good place and to scrub all the arch nemesis off everything.
Oh, feels good.
He's proud of that
those
joke.
power washing videos, it's like that.
I'll get my gurney out and hose off the arch nemesis filth. Oh dear. Definitely threw me there. A lot of people in chat asked, how will Headhunter work with the new monster mods?
Okay, this is the first question we were expecting. There are way more mods now, and that means Headhunter players that are getting a lot of mods cap out later. Previously, because there were relatively few Arch Nemesis mods, I mean, there were still dozens to be fair, but there were fewer. Once you've got them all active, you can't get more. Whereas here, there are far more mods, and so you can have far more upper end power. Having said that, these do less than the Arch Nemesis mods because that's what you asked us to do, and so they do implicitly. Like at the low end, Headhunter is less powerful. At the high end, Headhunter is more powerful. You pick which is best.
It's a kind of a slower
That's
ramp up to a
fair.
higher potential sort of deal.
I will take that
Calling
trade.
Headhunter Val Cleave now.
Excellent. Immortalum asks, does that mean no more fractured flasks because of the flask thing being removed?
Do you happen to know that?
Well, the zero class conversion, if not, then.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the flask conversion is gone. That and the like piles of whetstones ones are two examples.
The monster drops in the fracture conversion.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll fracture regular flask drops.
Okay.
Okay.
Simple Cookie asks, will the Atlas passive that increase the amount of mods on rare monsters be added back with the new rare monster changes?
I don't think it has been. Do you know that? Yeah. I mean, we certainly discussed it, but we want to kind of get a vanilla experience here of how many rare monster mods is appropriate, and an issue with feedback is if there are ways to juice it up and then people say there are too many mods, we don't know if they necessarily had that active. So we'll consider it for the future, but you know, this has been a year of rare monster mods, so let's just try this new system and see if people appreciate the changes, and then we can look at further changes to it.
It's been a wild ride, Chris. All right.
It certainly has.
So, recently you swapped kind of Divine and Exalted Orbs around. Now that we've had a league with the various changes surrounding these high-end currencies, I'd like to know, what were the goals of effectively swapping Divines and Exalts, and how effective have the changes been?
Well, the goals were that Exalts were used more for crafting, that someone would actually consider taking an item and using an Exalted Orb to get another mod.
Well, now you can't use Divine Orbs for what they're intended to
be. A lot more than it was before. Secondly, we wanted it to be harder to divine items, not just because we're mean, but because it makes well-rolled uniques more valuable. Previously, because divines were really accessible, well, relatively accessible, it meant that if you have a really rolled unique, it didn't really feel that special because someone can slam a few divines into it to get something like that. Now there is quite a wide variance of stuff. Like, look at something like Brass Dome, for example, where the worst versions of it are worth quite a lot less than the really good ones. And that's more fun, because then you find something that's just a much better version of something that someone else has that's worth less.
It's not more fun to not be able to use Divine Orbs at all.
These goals were achieved, right? Like, it certainly is harder to divine items. It is easier to exalt them. The economy survived. Life goes on. We'll continue to make broad changes whenever we feel like it that affect the economy, but it's sometimes good to just cause a bit of a shift in how people value items, so you don't get entrenched values. You don't get people believing, oh, this item is 6x forever. You know, it changes because the game changes.
So for the standard players that are still coping with their stash full of Exalts because they didn't convert them over in time.
This is like, seriously, like, oh, I had entirely all my money in Bitcoin and now it's worthless, right? Like, diversify, right? Again, economics.
Oh, come
multiple
on,
economics
Chris.
lessons today.
Path of Exile will set you up for life. Have a diversified portfolio of currency items.
Okay. It's really
currency. Keep some rares. Keep some crafting stuff. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you got to invest in some high-end, one-of-a-kind items, right?
Some old skin maps, maybe alternate.
Yeah.
I found out. I have this Redbeak on my account from the early race seasons. Like, I'm talking, I logged in to do races back in 2013 to literally test they were working and got an alternate art Redbeak, and now it's worth a mirror in standard.
Yeah, I have a shit ton of low-end race reward alt arts that are worth a ridiculous amount of money.
Invest in a variety of different items.
I don't know a shit ton. I have a tab full of them.
By economic changes.
If only I played in standard, I'd be rich. It's so good. It's interesting to see some new Vars skills. It's certainly been a while. I tried to look up exactly when, and I think 3.3 Incursion was the last time, which was, get ready, 17 leagues ago.
Damn, has it really been that
powerful,
long?
Longer cooldown or like ultimate skills can make gameplay quite a bit more engaging, I think. And a lot of people love Vars skills for that reason. It's certainly an underutilized skill category, though, not something you add new skills to all the time. So how do you decide then whether to make a skill, a Val skill, or just a regular skill that does a similar thing?
Well, if we're trying to come up with an ultimate skill, Val skills are ones that we have a control over you only using periodically, whereas regular skills, we generally don't put big cooldowns on them unless there's a bypassable thing. So if it's something where there's a good cooldown bypass mechanism, then it will probably be a regular skill. Now, the thing we're doing with Val skills here is we want to buff melee. There are a number of like you're not, you may be thinking, wow, that's a lot of changes to melee, or you may be thinking, where are all the melee changes, depending on whether you happen to notice stuff. But the changes to endgame unique weapons affect melee. The Val skill stuff affects melee in a way I'll discuss in a second. There's a bunch of other bits and pieces, like melee splash is being added to as a node on the passive tree, and we have some, I'm not supposed to talk about the details because it's secret, but you'll find there's some totem mastery that affects melee in an interesting way. So there's a few bits and pieces that together actually do make quite a cohesive set of melee buffs. But the theory with the Val ones is we targeted a set of weaker melee skills, where previously, if the player is using that skill, they just do the damage they were doing. And rather than just saying, oh, we're going to give the skill a little bit more damage, which has various issues, we've created a Val version, which at face value means that every X attacks, you get to do a more powerful one, which is an indirect buff. But we've tried to design many of these
timing
Val skills
Val
so that they
Cleave
also
to
directly
get
buff
the Headhunter
main
buff
version. Like Val Cleave is an example, where if you're
probably
using Val
going to
Cleave occasionally,
suck.
your cleaves themselves are more powerful. And so it's doing a more powerful attack sometimes and increasing the power of your other attacks the rest of the time. And because of the change where using the Val gem gives you the regular version of the skill, then there's no excuse not to be using Val Cleave if you were playing a Cleave character. And so overall, there are a lot of Val skills there that cause melee characters to be quite a lot more powerful. It also meant that we could, for example, target skills that we felt needed it. Now, when you see the patch notes in a little bit, you'll notice there's a small nerf to Lightning Strike, right? And you may be thinking, well, if we're trying to buff melee, what are you doing nerfing Lightning Strike? And the answer is it's far, 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 far better than the other melee skills. And so we're buffing the category, but that doesn't mean that every skill needs to come out entirely, entirely with additional damage on it. And so you'll find that
Speaking as someone who's
melee
been
overall
playing
is more
since
powerful,
2014,
but
it's
within the melee
wild to me
category,
that
there's
Lightning
quite a
Strike
lot
is meta
more
right
options
now.
available than there were before.
All right. So yeah, you like Val Cleave's a little underutilized. +2 radius not enough. We'll just give it a mini headhunter. Well, that'll help. should do. A Val skill's then a concept that's likely to carry forth into Path of Exile 2 with its altered skill fit, a system even.
No comment.
Okay. Nice. Frozen Legion is a pretty big news as well. So to clarify, for people who missed a particular detail about it, it's actually a spell that summons statues that then attack with your weapon, right?
Yep, that's
Super
correct.
cool. A spell attack. So you've done it now. There's nothing to stop you from casting a spell that shoots your bow's arrow, or attack that casts a spell that then does another attack. So is this something you're going to explore more potentially?
I'd say consider this as a hint at the way we're designing some Path of Exile 2 skills.
A little bit more going on. I like it. Very cool. We have a couple extra chat questions here. Oh, everyone was asking about divine shards. Yeah, I see your chat. I see you spamming divine shards. Okay, everyone wants to know, are divine shards going to be a thing? Chris?
They're called Chaos Orbs. Shards have problems. Okay, so we designed Path of Exile to get away from the concept of there being a homogeneous gold currency in games, right? And I understand every league we do, we introduce gold in it, but that's, within the confines of that particular scope. But overall, in main Path of Exile, we want to make sure that the currency items have fluctuating values relative to each other. It's very
I
important.
do like
as
that
part of
about
the way
the
that trade
game,
works.
but
And so taking something like Divine Orbs that are the de facto currency for high-end trades and adding a granular, proportional, like Divine Sense thing is not something that we would do unless there was a good reason for it. And so we'd have no plans to add Divine Shards. We think it would potentially be negative. It's okay to use cheaper currency as the Divine Shards. Like, you can take Chaos Orbs and turn them into Divines through trade or other mechanisms. The value fluctuates, but that's what we want it to be doing.
All right.
well, we need 4 columns of
Addicts
Chaos
asks,
Orbs
do the
to get a
clones
single
from the new
Divine Orb.
skills count as minions? That'll be the Frozen Legion. I only ever saw them referred to as statues.
They do not.
The clones
Right.
like Val Double Strike or General Strike.
Yeah, so it's like Val Double Strike, for example.
The attack on to plane asks, does Val Flicker attack one target multiple times? So does it have like boss applications then, or is it more about pack clear?
Can hit the same target more than once, so on a boss, every single hit will be on.
Yeah. Against a single target, it will do every single hit against that target.
Nice.
Very anime. Cool.
Mhm.
Okay.
It is very anime, yes.
Let's talk crafting and league mechanics a little bit. So, challenge leagues in Path of Exile have always been a place for you guys to experiment with systems. Some of them intended to go core, if they work out, for example. But otherwise, others are like never really intended to go core, and they're just specifically for that. But even in that case, I imagine there's a chance that they can give you some useful information to inform future design. So crafting systems have been a bit of a trend lately, I notice, with leagues. Like Sentinel Recombinators, for example, and Lake of Calandra Mirroring.
I like the
Some of these crafting
Recombinators. They
systems
should
end
have
up being
gone
particularly
core.
liked by the players too. I think people really like the Recombinators. Are these sorts of new crafting systems designed with becoming core features in mind, or are they more experiments to explore future design possibilities? And is crafting systems something that you're keen to keep experimenting with?
We want to introduce something new in every league, a new way of getting items, or a new thing you can do with items. We found that if we leave it in the game just as a de facto thing, then you accumulate dozens and dozens and dozens of systems that create both power creep and complexity creep for the way the crafting works. And that's good. Path of Exile is meant to have that stuff, and power creep is natural, and there's no big problem there. But we have found that introducing stuff like recombinators and then turning it off until we've had a good think about how it fits in is probably safer. Like, a lot of expectations with Harvest would have been reduced if we hadn't reintegrated it into the game before we were ready to and before we fully understood the consequences of that. And so with the mist from Lake of Calandra or the recombinators, we are looking for ways that we can bring them back. And we do plan to continue to introduce systems like this, some of
Just
which will
buff
stick
Harvest.
around,
Give us
some
back
which
some of
won't.
the crafts,
An
Chris.
example is
Come on.
Sanctified relics in the Sanctum offer a lot of character power, and that's a Sanctum-specific thing. We don't expect that Sanctified relics will necessarily exist after Sanctum is finished. Maybe we make it core, maybe we don't, maybe we keep them, maybe we don't, but they're a thing for that league that let you experiment with builds that you otherwise wouldn't be able to. There are a lot of things in there which let you push your build further than you normally would, and that's something that's cool about the Sanctum League. It may be that it becomes a permanent part of Path of Exile later, and we are looking for ways to bring stuff back. Like, I don't know if this is actually a thing, but at least in our planning, one of the things that the monster mods could cause, you know how they have those special drops that occur that we were speaking about a few minutes ago, one of the things that they could drop was the mist that mirrors from Calandra, for example, the one that gives you the 2 currency items. I don't know what form that will be in. If it's in 320, we're still sorting out the details of some of the exotic ones like that. But that's an example of us taking a system that was used as a reward mechanic for a league and then making it a rare reward from another system in the game.
Cool.
Okay.
Speaking of things that potentially can come back in the future, is there any word on Ultimatum?
Ultimatum is split into 2 pieces. There's the boss fights with the uniques. They're back in the game, as of like last league, I think, or the one before. Time is a blur. And then there's the actual Ultimatum mechanic. Now, we have a plan for the Ultimatum mechanic, and we mentioned there is a plan for a while, and that plan is not due yet, but it is coming at some point until it changes. Having said that, the offer/deferral system in Sanctum does feel a lot like it. This is where we say, here is a thing, or you can keep going in order to double it, essentially, but with quite a lot more doubling going on. And so players who liked the risk of Ultimatum will certainly like that mechanic.
Interesting. Yeah, I can see the parallel there. Very briefly, just 2 small questions on Ruthless. How has the player interest and reception been to the Ruthless Alpha from your perspective?
The alpha testers are very positive. That's really good to see. I'm glad to see they're enjoying it. And hopefully those who couldn't get into the alpha and who are interested in that mode can have a chance to check it out when it launches alongside 320.
I probably won't play it because
is
you
Ruthless
can't
mode
get.
you want to keep making changes to long term? Like,
Well, I won't
rebalancing
play it because
skills
I'm not good at the
specifically for
game,
mode,
but
for
I also
example?
won't play it because you can't
We
get
will do some
challenge
Ruthless
rewards in
specific
it.
skill balance. Currently, the focus was on getting fundamentals in place, like getting the mode to function. And then if we find time later, we'll be able to use it to make whatever changes are needed on specific skills. And to some extent, with, as you know, with the way Path of Exile works, if there's a skill that's dominant and somewhat trivializing stuff, then we won't have any qualms about ruthlessly nerfing that in that mode. Now, there's a fundamental philosophy difference, right? A player who's playing the main game will get upset if we nerf their skills, and this is because it's the way they like to play Path of Exile. If we just decide we hate minion characters one day, then all these people who come to Path of Exile to enjoy playing minion characters as a reliable way they can engage with the game would be upset that now they can't do the thing they like. In Ruthless, all bets are off. We will make whatever changes we feel like, and it will stay hard, and you will have to adapt. And, you know, the Ruthless players are big boys. They can deal with this.
I hope it's that philosophy
It should be
stays
fine. So
in
we
Ruthless.
will make some skill-specific changes, and very likely that those changes are not the same as balance changes that we do in the core game. In the core game, we want to make sure all the archetypes are viable and there's good diversity and that kind of stuff, but in Ruthless, we have other objectives.
I'm going to spam you with some uncategorized random questions from chat now.
Right.
Kyle MC asks, how does quantity and rarity affect the Sanctum? And I'll append to that another question I saw someone ask. Map mods don't affect the Sanctum, right? It's a separate zone.
Yeah, your map mods do not affect the Sanctum. Quantity and rarity on your character will affect your drops you get from the monsters, I believe, right? There are monsters in the Sanctum that you can kill, and they drop items, so it's not like, the goal is that when you're mapping, it doesn't reduce the amount of item drops you're getting by going and playing in the Sanctum. You do get drops, and those monsters are technically unique monsters, so technically they're pretty juiced, and quantum rarity do affect
Oh, it's
that.
not
So
packs of
going into the
monsters, it's
Sanctum, killing
unique
some
boss
monsters
fights?
is roughly similar to killing monsters
Or
in
mini
the map
boss
that you
fights, I
came from,
guess?
plus all the Sanctum rewards on top.
Nice. Damaris asks, how endgame is the new mechanic? So that'd be Sanctum. Does that encounter that on like the first beach as you start the campaign, or does it kick in later?
Yep, kicks in right at the beginning. So basically, you start doing your first Sanctum at level like 2 or whatever. As you get into the coast, and you probably won't get very far in those Sanctum runs, but it's a good opportunity to start learning, start accumulating some relics and so on, and you'll need them because later on it gets really hard. There are some things in the Sanctum, like the special endgame uniques, that can only be dropped if you are very high in maps, because they're very, very powerful pinnacle things. But yeah, it does play throughout the entire campaign.
Great. El Swego asks, if Soul Taker is going to be so insanely rare, what does this mean for Kingmaker? The
Soul Taker was already rare.
I'm just going to smile. We thought of that one.
Oh, okay. Mystery.
Maybe it's been buffed as well.
Oh, okay. Something to be revealed potentially then, I'm getting, chat.
Oh, that's going to be painful for Animate Guardian players.
Will our Starforges or Lion Eyes Glare sitting in Standard be buffable to their Headhunter tier strengths with a Divine Orb?
Yep.
Oh, hell yes!
I know, it's stupid, isn't it? But we had to do that because it's fair and because of divination cards that you could have been hoarding and all the other things. So yeah, you get some free ridiculous items in Standard if you had diversified into them.
I have a couple Headhunters sitting, Starforges sitting around.
Excellent.
Someone says stonks. That's great.
Okay. FDXPO asks, with endgame unique weapons becoming more rare, what about their respective divination cards, like Starforges, for example?
Yes, we are adjusting the divination cards. This means in Standard, the old divination cards are now worth more.
All right.
I'll have to check and see if I have any Starforge div cards.
Couple melee from buffs granted by totems, Ancestral Protector and War Chief.
This is actually a hot topic internally. I don't know the answer.
Okay.
I think it's the case where our designers acknowledge this is a problem and are looking for solutions, but maybe we've doubled down on it a little bit in this one because of that totem mastery I mentioned before. You'll see what I mean.
Wait and see. Doug Izzle asks, will Ruthless launch on console at League launch too?
I believe so. Yeah.
Great.
That's going to be miserable.
Questions, which we already asked. Theory Crafter and many other people ask, is Reforge keep prefix/suffix coming back in some shape or form? Speaking of things coming back.
I'm not aware of it coming back. No, sorry.
Okay. And is there any ETA on the next mystery box release from Forest Bishop?
It's likely to be at the League launch or within a day or so of it.
All right. Spooky asks, Chris, can you please share your current thoughts on the loss of the historic buff to loot?
Oh, here we go.
So this is one of those tricky things where, we feel people completely misunderstood what is there, and, we didn't want to go on a big rant and try to correct people, but we posted some numbers at some point during the league and then left it, but it boils down to this. If you're a regular player playing regular content, as we can see based on looking at what regular players are doing, and by regular I mean people in red maps, then there is no loss of anything. It's better than it was before. Sentinel is higher than it was previously, and people didn't believe us. They said doubt. They weren't happy with that, so we just stopped trying to push the point. If you were one of those groups that were juicing stuff to insane degrees with 6-person parties and all the crazy stuff going on and using exactly the right league mechanics with exactly the right stuff, then yeah, absolutely there was a nerf there. And for some reason, the community feeling about this was that we nerfed the average person. it's a little bit of a Robin Hood thing where we tried to take from the rich and give to the poor, and the communication around the whole thing was poorly done. We didn't explain it, like patch note it correctly, we didn't communicate about it, we didn't really understand the nature of the changes fully ourselves, but where we got it to with the buffs we did was better than where it was before, unless you were doing one of the crazy juice situations. And so it was frustrating for us because we felt that
honestly,
the miscommunication had kind of...
that crazy juice should be rewarded.
Miscommunication is our fault, but we felt the whole situation kind of ran away and caused people to really hate the loot situation more than they should have done. Anyway, I think that this has taught us a lot of lessons about communication, but there's no need to further improve.
The stuff you have to do to Crazy Juice is wild. I kind of think it should be rewarded.
Uniques, in fact, especially uniques that you're getting for regular gameplay involving a variety of different leagues does exceed what it was in 3.18. It's just that if you're playing the crazy Imperium style stuff as we describe it, then you're certainly getting less, and that was an intentional part of the change.
Has there been some sort of change to the way that you're like approaching the reveals and the patch noting and stuff?
Somebody asked about the Abyss Snake on the Atlas tree.
Like historically, you've never revealed everything. Like there's a lot of stuff that's considered not in patch notable changes, for example. Has that changed at all over time?
Historically, we've tried very hard not to talk about drop rate changes. If we feel
I like that it's shaped like an abyss crack,
decades, well, not decades, but more than a decade, we have followed that policy. Having said that, we should have talked about the changes to the quantity and rarity bonuses from different league content, because it does affect decisions people are making. There was stuff before that was really juicy and everyone wanted to play that, and we tried to make it more fair so that the leagues are roughly equal, and that's something that should have been communicated more clearly, and we certainly learned the lesson there. And the lack of communication there was not malicious, it was entirely just like, ignorance on our part. There was miscommunications internally. I missed the memo almost literally, and that meant that it wasn't as much part of the marketing as it should have been. And we certainly have tried very hard this time not to make the same mistake again.
All right, good to hear. Thank you very much for the insights, Chris, and thank you for spending this time together with us at the Q&A. I'll let you get to it, and we'll let them release the patch notes so that everyone can have a read. Thank you very much.
Enjoy, everyone. Thanks so much.
Please.
See you later, everyone.
All right. Patch notes when? Patch notes. Patch notes. Oh, not there yet. Come on. All right, yeah. Shut up, Path of Exile stream. Let's put on some music while we wait for the patch notes. Oh, what do we want to listen to? Let's put Rivers in the Desert back on. Oh, man. Okay. Chat back up. Okay, I am feeling positively about this.
It's now or never, and I've got to make my decision. This time could be my moment. Is this a mirage or
Making Starforge rarer, I think, is unnecessary. I think it's entirely unnecessary. They could have just buffed it back to its normal, to its pre-nerf numbers, and it would have been fine. It would have been great. It wouldn't have had so much of a market share, especially considering how powerful rare gear can be these days. We'll have to see how much use Starforge gets. We'll have to see how much use Starforge gets. If it turns out to still be like a one divine item, I'm going to be very sad. Or actually rather very happy, because I want to be able to use one. The Arch Nemesis changes, or the rare monster changes, I should say, since the Arch Nemesis changes that it's fucking gone, are good. The Sanctum looks awesome. I can't wait to see what's been added to the tree. I want to know what the Abyss Snake is. I really want to know what the Abyss Snake is. Come on, come on. Come on, patch notes. I wonder how many Starforge cards I have. Probably not many. I definitely have a couple Starforges, though. Aha! Here we go. 3 months challenge leagues. Added Ruthless, added Frozen Legion, added Volcanic Fissure, Cursed Grounds, more skills create Cursed Grounds, no edgery style, which is pretty cool. Hex Bloom transfers hexes from its hex proliferation. Interesting. 8 new Vol skill gems: Vol Cleave, Flicker Strike, Blade Flurry, Venom Gyre, Vol Molten Strike. Was there not a Vol Molten Strike already? Huh, I guess there wasn't. Vol Caustic Arrow, Vol Volcanic Fissure, oh, one of the new ones, and Vol Smite. Fracturing Orb, which is very exciting. Fracturing Shards from Harbies. 15 unique items, 10 div cards. Atlas Memories, one of which is very exciting. Kalandra's Touch Unique Ring has been added to the core drop pool. Hang on. Kalandra's Touch. That's the ring that mirrors your other ring, right? Yeah! Oh, shit. Oh, shit. They're keeping that. Ooh. Hell yes. Granted, exceptional Eldritch Ichors have received new art, so they're more distinguishable. Cool. Even witnessed bat bosses now have a chance to drop an Awakened Gem. Cool. Maps have been added back to the Atlas. Bazaar is back. Cool. Channel's back. City Square is back. Coves wasn't in Lake of Kalandra? Shows how much I played of it. Ooh, Estuary's back. I love Estuary. Haunted Mansion is back, so you can keep working on getting that hideout. Primordial Blocks is back. They took that out? Weird. Sunken City's back. Can work on that hideout as well. Cool. Arid Lake is gone? Turn the music down a little. Cells is gone. Hell yeah. Dig is gone. Can't get that hideout anymore. Good thing I already have it. Belfry's gone? Oh, I like Belfry. Jungle Valley is gone. Lava Chamber is gone. I like that one too. Mudgeister as well. No Park either? Summit, you can't get that hideout. Vault is gone. Waterways is gone. I guess Waterways and Channel, there's no point to them coexisting. Map tiers and locations have been shuffled. Pantheon changes. Divination cards changes. Nurse is now in the Carcass map. Time Lost Relic is in Grotto. Akil's Prophecy is back with a completely different function. Mad King awards an ultimatum aspect. Interesting. Oh, here's the problem solution thing again. Artemis' monster mods each added a number of stats and buffs. Monster mods now do one specific thing. Hallelujah. Monster mods now say exactly what they do. Percentage of Arch Nemesis mods that significantly changed gameplay was high, and combinations of modifiers that required careful play arose too frequently, making content too complex. Sure did! Yeah, this is much better. Eldritch Altar problems. Lightly nerfed the total rewards and updated them in various other ways. We have removed some reward types. Yeah, duplicate gems. Who cared about duplicate gems? Seriously. That was trash. Altars no longer offer a choice for basic currency, but instead offer choices for specific currency. Cool. More common but very low value rewards can no longer be offered as part of the basic currency reward. Cool. Instead of offering choices for scarabs or divination cards as a category, they're now more specific. For example, rather than simply divination cards, you now see things like divination cards which reward unique jewelry. I want to know how specific scarabs are. Is it just like a chance for rusted, polished, or gilded scarabs? Or is it stuff like you can only drop torment scarabs from them? The rewards that still remain are currency, scarabs, divination cards, duplicate currency, unique scarabs, maps, divination cards, and quantity and rarity. To give you a specific example, if you run maps influenced by the Eater of Worlds, you'll see divine orbs from the basic currency reward more than twice as often as before. Cool. We're adding rusted scarabs to the core drop pool. I hope they're not rare. I hope they're relatively common. Plentiful Scarabs put... Well, the Atlas skill tree puts mapping in the best place it's ever been. But Plentiful Scarabs on top of that is a godsend. The best mapping had ever been was Arch Nemesis League because of the Atlas tree plus Plentiful Scarabs. Okay. Buffing boss drop altar rewards. They're reducing influence packs without letting you know which one. They're reducing the number of different types of monster packs that can spawn in a single map for influenced monsters. I'm not sure I like that change. The variety was cool. Wrath of the Cosmos, it went over in the stream. Changed Eldritch Gaze, so it only affects altars and maps influenced by the Eaters of Worlds. That went over in the stream. Removed Atlas passives that increase the amount of rewards from limited content. Shaper Elder, Searing Exarch, Eater of Worlds, and the Maven. Full Atlas passive free will be revealed before the launch of 3.20. I cannot wait to see that. A new keystone that causes scarabs used in your map device to provide increased pack size rather than their usual modifiers. Ooh. Ooh, there's a use for some of the junk ones. I don't really care about ailment mitigation, but okay, buffed numbers across the board. Yeah, they buffed all the chance to avoid and reduced duration of ailment stat numbers by a lot. Making it so that every unique jewel that drops is very rare. Many existing unique jewels have been removed from the drop pool. I want to know the list. New set of unique jewels as powerful chase items in the core drop pool. They're nerfing Brute Force Solution and the like, so they're corruption only, and you can't get corruption modifiers on them. Deterministic sources for some unique jewels, like combat focus getting through a vendor recipe. The Primordial Golem jewels is what I'm presuming this is talking about. Some other build-enabling jewels that affect golems can no longer drop but can be found from another more deterministic source. While we want you to discover this new source on your own during gameplay, we will say for clarity that these jewels do not come from vendor recipes. I guess maybe they're a boss drop? I hope it's not just divination cards. There's already one for Primordial Jewels. The following existing unique jewels are able to be found as items. That is a short list. Is that the list? Are those the only base unique jewels that are staying? Inspired Learning, Intuitive Leap, Lionized Fall, Might of the Meek, Pure Talent, Unending Hunger, and Unnatural Instinct. That's it? That's it? They're getting rid of the rest of them? Except for the ones that are now corruption outcomes. It's Series Reign, Brute Force Solution, Careful Planning, Chill of Corruption, Efficient Training, Energized Armor, Energy from Within, Fertile Mind, Fevered Mind, Fluid Motion, Fortress Covenant, Fragility, Healthy Mind, Hidden Potential, Inertia, Pacifism, Powerlessness, Quickening Covenant, Rain of Splinters, Reckless Defense, Seething Fury, Self-Flagellation, Soul's Wick, The Golden Rule, and To Dust. Damn! Replica Primordial Might and Replica Reckless Defense are the only replica jewels that are able to be obtained. Wow! Primordial Might, Harmony, and Eminence, no longer in the cold drop pool, now found from another more deterministic source. 6 new vendor recipes for Dead Reckoning, Endless Misery, Spirit Guards, and the 3 combat focused unique jewels. Okay, Spirit Guards is staying. It's now a vendor recipe. Okay. Ancient orbs in the altar of sacrifice in the Temple of Atsuwado can no longer be used on unique jewels, flasks, or maps. Flasks? I guess because of the small pool of things they could turn into. Bestiary jewel recipe that creates a unique jewel has been changed and now creates a rare talisman. Damn. Rebalanced some unique jewels and compensated for the loss of specific jewels in the form of new modifiers or skill changes. Added eternal labyrinth helmet enchantments for spark and ethereal knives that cause projectiles to fire in a circle. Spark projectile speed and ethereal knives pierce enchantments have been removed. Frostblade's buff. Divergent summon skeletons provides 0 to plus 0 to 1 seconds to cooldown and summons 0 to 4 skeleton warriors. Ooh. Spirit guards can animate up to 20 ranged weapons. 20? Oh, I'm eating good. I love that jewel already. And you can update it with the Divine Orb. Hell yes. Okay. I'm happy about that Spirit Guards change. Oh, but now you gotta spend a Divine Orb on it. Oh, that's not worth it. Unless the vendor recipe is super expensive and rare, it's not worth divining. Two new prefix mods that can roll on jewels, mana reservation efficiency of skills, and flask effect duration. Cool. Unique jewels have been replaced by rare weapons, rare jewels. Book of Ruettes is now the only road offered. First to Sacred Ground. Alright, hexes. I don't really care about hexes because they don't affect my builds, but they've removed Doom, buffed hexes. Major bosses no longer have less effective curses on them, which is awesome. That's a lot of curse stuff. Heretic's Veil buff. Big Heretic's Veil buff. Plus 2 to the level of socketed curse gems, previously plus 1. And socketed curse gems have 30% increased reservation efficiency, previously 20. Cosper's Will, Ilfbon's Trickery, Feldog Fang. Hexes, hexes, hexes. Oh, they're nerfing. Well, they're nerfing the stats on the gems, but they're buffing gems to be better against endgame bosses. I think that averages out to a buff. Oh, they buffed Temporal Chain's duration by a lot. Damn. Reducing curse effect. Sources. Cluster jewelry work. Oh my god, there's so much about curses. I don't care. Endgame unique weapons. Problem. Many of Path of Exile's most iconic, unique attack-based weapons have fallen out of use over the years. Because you nerfed Starforge into oblivion. This is what you wanted, and it sucked. Its series disfavor no longer has plus 2 to level of socketed support gems. Existing versions of this unique are unaffected. It now adds 310 to 332, 370 to 390 fizz damage. Previously in the 200s. Oh, damn, that's a buff. And plus 10 to weapon range. Oh my god. That's going to be so rare. Existing versions of this unique item can be updated to the new values using a Divine Orb, while keeping the level of socketed support gems. New versions of this unique now have plus 30% to quality of socketed support gems. Ooh, that might be better than the plus 2 to level of socketed support gems. Ooh. Bino's kitchen knife has a big buff to damage. Bloodseeker, Divinarius. Gained a lot of life per enemy killed. Damn. That's 100 to 200 up from flat 30. Youch. And a bunch of mana per enemy killed, previously 10. That's cool. Essentia Sanguis. Kingmaker has a lot more physical damage. Kitava's Feast, level 30 melee splash. Lionized Glare. There's a big damage buff. Rory Urki. Big damage buff. Savior has a big damage buff. 130 to 150, up from 40 to 50. Soul Taker, we've seen the damage buff. Replica Soul Taker can no longer be obtained. Oh well. Starforge. Starforge is not as good as it used to be. Starforge is 400 to 450. It used to go up to 500. Come on. Buff it back to pre-nerf numbers. Varanastra got a buff. Voidforge now has 700% of weapon fizz damage as extra damage of a random element, previously 300%? And it lost to 30 to 60% increased fizz damage, but holy shit. Old Voidforges are going to be pricier if they're useful. Well, Toxic Rift. And a big flat damage buff. 100% of lightning damage converted to chaos damage, previously 60%. Buffed back to pre-nerf numbers. Hell yes. Is Voltaxic Rift now a Headhunter tier item? Monster life regen is a rarely significant issue for players, but in cases where it does present an obstacle, there are few solutions available to deal with it. Specifics. Life Mastery has been replaced with nearby enemies a 50% reduced life regen rate. Cool. Melee Splash access to the passive tree. And a single additional strike there to the attack mastery instead of a specific node. Damn. Alright, they're nerfing Pious Path. They're nerfing Spectral Helix and Lightning Conduit. They've hit Spectral Helix hard. Hard. God damn. 100% effectiveness of added damage at gem level 1, previously 160, up to 150% at gem level 20, previously 250. Holy shit. Lightning Strike now fires 2 additional projectiles at all gem levels, down from 7 at gem level 20. Holy shit. And its quality no longer provides extra damage. Quality and Divergent Lightning Strike no longer provides extra projectiles. It now provides chance to shock? That sucks! And Lab Helmet enchantments to cause Lightning Strike to fire additional projectiles have been nerfed as well. Onslaught is now a buff, and modifiers to buff effect now apply to Onslaught. Ooh! Flask effect modifiers are now able to roll on silver flasks. Cool! Withering Step and Elusive. Added a new Totem Mastery that provides Ancestor Totem buff effects linger for 3 seconds, which replaces the 50% increased Totem Placement Range Mastery, which I doubt anybody used. They've buffed Tainted Orbs of Fusing. Nice. Fracturing Orb and Fracturing Shards. Hell yeah. It's hard to tell where the edge of Sirius's arena is when environmental decorations are visually de-atomized. Change these visuals so you can tell where the edge of the arena is after a de-atomization storm has passed over the decorations. Oh, is that what those big storms are called? Huh. Why are you standing at the edge of Sirius's arena? I mean, you have to get away from Sirius, but not that far. Oh, they've nerfed the ooze in the Infinite Hunger fight. Hell yes! Ooh, Bestiary in Party Play currently awards a beast to every player when capturing beasts, causing Party Play to be the best way to capture specific rare beasts many times over. Additional captures of a beast when playing in a party are now rolled on a per-player basis, with the chance being tied to the quantity bonus granted for playing in a party. Huh. Yeah, I guess that's fair. Owner of the instance is still guaranteed to receive the captured beast, of course. Hurok's giftiness for the maps offered for the mission has been reduced. Chances for him to offer a more rare, unique map are now more reasonable. Well, alright. It was possible to use the Path of Exile trade website to determine the modifiers on unidentified Atlas memories. As a result, Atlas memories now drop identified. Well, that's one way to handle the bug, I guess. Upon leaving town in Act 6 and killing your first set of monsters, you'd very quickly obtain Rogue's Markers and be told to go back to town and talk to Kurai. This disrupted the flow of the main questline, and you were then directed to do more and more things for the initial heist quest. We've removed the guaranteed Rogue's Marker drop from Act 6. Was there a guaranteed one? Huh. Pulling ambushers now cast Frostbite instead of Deadly Weakness. Bone Prison used by Negropolis Map Boss now has a small gap to run out through. Ooh, okay, cool. Magnus Stonethorn's cast when damage taken Molten Shell that requires more damage to be triggered, and now absorbs more damage in map areas, proportional to the life changes that Rogue Exiles received in 3.19. It didn't have a cooldown before? Alright, Kurok lead mods. Fortune favors the brave, of course. 2 additional Rogue Exiles for 2 Chaos, not worth. 3 additional Shrines for 3 Chaos, might be worth. 2 additional Breaches for 4 Chaos, if you're farming Breach, pretty good. Beyond for 5C. I didn't play with New Beyond really at all, so I don't know how good that's gonna be. But I like the idea of New Beyond. 3 additional Harbingers for 6 Chaos is probably good. Mirror of Delirium for 10 Chaos is for high-end juicers, and Ritual for 13 Chaos is... that is expensive. Quest changes, gems, gem offer changes. Added a display that details the effects of all Eldritch altars that have been selected in an area. That's cool. Right-clicking on a Chronicle of Atsuatl now allows you to view the Temple of Atsuatl. Oh, we could do that before? It was Control-click? I didn't know we could do that before. Atlas missions are based on the high tier of maps. Hovering over a recipe that adds a specific modifier in the bestiary panel now displays a preview of the modifier, which is excellent. Added slots for Fracturing Orb and Shard to the currency stash tab. Good. League filter on the character selection screen now only lists leagues you have a character in. Mini energy shield bar will now display separately to the life bar, which is probably good. Right-click on a Divine Vessel. There's Captured a Soul to upgrade a Pantheon power. You can still turn them into Sin if you prefer. Nope, I'm going to right-click like crazy. Improve the scroll speed in the Friends and Guild section of the social panel. Fixed a bug where ROG would only offer base types that had unique versions. Huh. A bug that allowed the total value of minimum power, frenzy, or endurance charges to go negative, which could cause skills to act as if players had more charges than they actually did. Interesting. I wonder what you could do with that. Is that an underflow? How high did it underflow? Fixed a bug where auras supported by Divine Blessing socketed in a weapon slot can remain active after weapon swapping if you add another copy of the gem socketed in the same weapon slot. Fair enough. Area of Hex skills were able to be negative, resulting in the Hex applying to yourself rather than enemies. That's funny. That's pretty funny, actually. Applying temp chains in a way not from a curse skill, such as through curse on hit, was incorrectly applying temporal chains 50% less effect on players to all targets. Oof! Well, that's a rough bug. I'm glad they fixed that. Introduced in 3.12, that's been there for 2 years and they never fixed it? Alright, minor nerf to punishment because they fixed a bug. Fields created by Galvanic Field will remain after unequipping the skill. Neuros Harp was able to create shield ground when you had not frozen an enemy. Description of Icicle Burst. Temporal Rift, resetting your life mana and energy shield to the values they had when first cast, could be incorrectly prevented by some recovery restrictions. Okay. Tempest Shield could cause it to sometimes fail to deal damage until the skill was turned off and on again. Expert speed buffs or debuffs. Alright. Ooh, curse effect reduction applied to monsters at very deep delve depths was not applying correctly. That's gonna hurt. That's gonna hurt a lot of people who go deep. Another underflow. Having negative values of damage conversion would grant extra damage of the initial damage type. Huh. How would you get negative values of damage conversion?
My heart is a furnace, had a selling my word of conflict. One goes what keeps me going. Take back what I lost to the bosses of greed and fear. Don't ask if I'm ready, but I'm ready to take them down now. The time for a new start is constantly drawing nearer.
Infinite Hunger could sometimes use skills where they were submerged. Glad that got fixed. Champion's Beam skill to be invisible if you had left the area and returned. Good fix. A bug where some bosses, most notably the Elder, could not be killed if the player had a stat that caused a percentage of damage dealt to be leached by the enemy as life. Huh. Chihula, Ulatal, and Zoth Breach Stones did not have the additional random modifiers they should have. Glad that got fixed. Tailoring orbs can no longer be used on items with fixed sockets. Luring Volsite areas with an area level of 69 could not drop mortal fragments. How ironic. Oh, excuse me. Possible to die in your hideout by being linked to a minion when the minion expired. Large numbers of spark projectiles with the Spark Spider's microtransaction applied could cause monsters to T-pose. Huh. It was possible to vendor 5 inscribed ultimatums for a new inscribed ultimatum in standard leagues. Weird. Okay, well, interesting. I am tentatively excited. GGG has had a bad couple of leagues and some bad communication and some bad design choices, so I'm not like super hyped, but I am tentatively excited. So the last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna look at the supporter packs. You get the back attachment, you get... Ooh, for $30 you get the Delirious Hideout decoration. Ooh, interesting. $60 you get the Ethereal Fusing effect. That and the crafting thing are pretty cool. But I'm not sure they're $60 cool, but I want them. And the portal is the $90 reward for that. Beehive Weapon and Stampede Quicksilver or whatever, I don't care. Prospero's Ring is pretty cool. Oh, and fucking Kadiro is a $90 reward. I don't have $90 to spare. I have to save up for a con I'm going to with my mother. And then for a PlayStation 5 by the end of next year for Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. I want Kadiro so bad! I miss Kadiro. I wish they'd just given us a shade of Kadiro. But having him be a vendor and having him have a shit ton of voice lines is pretty damn cool. I wish he were a lower tier. I want Kadiro so badly. Well, that's going to be it for the stream. In a couple of hours, we're going to be streaming some more Ghost Trick Phantom Detective, so stay tuned for that. This will be up on YouTube shortly, by the morning, I think. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.